Good morning, everyone. Welcome to City Hall and to Council Chambers. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Our invocation this morning will be given by Deacon Richard Longoria with St. Helena of the True Cross of Jesus Christ Church.
Almighty and ever-living God, hear our prayers to you as we ask for blessings on the members of our City Council, on our city leaders and staff, and all our city workers. May their actions always reflect the beauty of your wisdom, the beauty of your compassion, mercy, and love for all peoples. May they respect your word and all they do by actions of mercy and kindness for our city, for all who live here, and always pay homage to the beauty of your creation, the wonders of the air we breathe, and the beauty of your waters, all that give us life and health. This we ask in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.
Sorry. Thank you, Deacon. Today our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the Texas state flag will be given by Zane Preston Badrow. He is a National Honor Society member. He's an All-Star Theater Technician Award, and he is the actual Carroll Tiger mascot. Or he's the guy behind the curtain.
Tigers.
That's right.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in honoring the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Zane, and good luck with your studies. Ms. Huerta, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Sylvia Campos.
Here.
Eric Cantu.
Here.
Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Kaylin Paxson.
Here.
Everett Roy.
Here.
Mark Scott.
Here.
Carolyn Vaughn.
Here.
City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
City Attorney Miles Risley. Here. Mayor and Council, a quorum of the Council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
Great, thank you, Ms. Huerta. Moving on to Section E, our City Manager's comments and update on city operations. Mr. Zanoni.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, good morning, and members of the council and the community. I'm presenting from here today because I wanted to be with the employees, and you'll hear more about them in a moment. So we want to take a moment and celebrate success with these teammates that are next to me and others that are sitting to my right. And as we know, our city organization has 29 different lines of business, and we run many of those 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so we're pretty busy most of the time, and we work in a fast-paced environment. But we know that when success happens, it's good to stop just for a moment and celebrate that success. And that's what we want to do today with these teammates that are next to me in the city manager's report. With me here, as I've mentioned, is about half the team that worked in the Mary Rose pipeline. And so the other half of the teammates are at the pump stations in Bloomington and Woodsboro. This team was instrumental in a record-setting delivery of 70 million gallons of water consecutively or continuously through the Mary Rose pipeline. This has never been done before in the city's history. About 25, 26 years ago, there were a few tests of this that was short-lived, and the city never tried it again. But this team here next to me has achieved success and consecutively and continuously now for 8 days, having 70 million, and eventually that will increase to 75 with the high of 79 million gallons a day going through the Mary Rose pipeline. Also here with me today, in this business that we run, I've said it for 6 years, but we can't do it alone. We rely on a lot of partners, and we have two here with us today. We have the general manager from the Lavaca-Navidad River Authority, Pat Bruskowski, and we also have Brian Williams, who you're familiar with. He's the general manager of the San Patricio Municipal Water District, and they're both going to speak this morning as well. Just over a week ago today, last Monday at 8:01 p.m., just as the sun was setting, this team here next to me increased our pumping schedule on the Mary Roads pipeline to what is known as Schedule 4. You've heard us talk about that before, or 70 million gallons a day. The transition to Schedule 4, as I've mentioned already, was successful, and over the past 7 days, we've been pumping on Schedule 4 consistently, consecutively, with the exception of one day where we had to do a small adjustment to one of the valves, and we took it back down to Schedule 3. But the key thing to highlight here is that was no easy accomplishment. The teammates knew that risk was abundant and failure was a possibility. They knew that. The guys here knew that. But the team worked considerably through that night. They used their skill and their talent and their determination to achieve success. They did that at 3 pumping stations. They did it at the Lake Texana pump station near Edna, Texas in Jackson County. They did it at the Bloomington pump station in Bloomington, Texas. That's about 13 miles southeast of Victoria in Victoria County. And then at Woodsboro pump station in Woodsboro, Texas in Refugio County. In this effort, as I mentioned, there was a great deal of risks, but at 8:01 last Monday, we placed a great deal of trust in these teammates, as did the region, and a great deal of expectation for them to succeed, and they did. And so that's why we're here today, just to take a moment to celebrate their success. Before I turn over to Drew Molly, who's going to speak as well, I want to thank everybody that made this possible. While these frontline employees are here, it took a lot of leadership, and the examples include Drew Molly, our partners at Lavaca-Navidad River Authority, even San Patricio Municipal Water District was involved. Most importantly, though, I do want to thank these employees, the frontline employees, who we otherwise probably wouldn't see. And so that's why I want to acknowledge them today. I want you to know, I want our employees to know that we are grateful for your work. We believe in you in securing the delivery of water to over 500,000 people in 7 different counties. So thank you, guys. And with that, Drew's going to come up and say a few words. Thanks, Peter. You go.
Sir. Peter, thank you for giving us this platform of recognition today. Mayor and Council, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here in front of you today and talk about the fact that we are leveraging every drop of water off of the Mary Roads pipeline today. This, as the city manager just said, this is an opportunity to recognize the staff that we have here, CCW, today. It also is a moment in time to recognize the fact that we have partners, regional partners, Lavaca-Navidad River Authority, San Patricio Municipal Water District. I want to talk a little bit about something that I think some may think that this was, well, let me back up a second. I think most of us know the tremendous asset that we have today. So the Mary Roads pipeline, 143 miles. I think probably one of the most staggering things that I think about when I think of the Mary Roads pipeline was the vision to look into the future and do something that was not easy to do. Thinking about the fact that the water rights on the Colorado River were secured in 1992. The other thing I want to mention and I want to talk about and I want to highlight is the fact that this did not happen easily. There's not a button in a control room somewhere that you just push and everything goes to Schedule 4. There is not a lever anywhere in a control room that you push or you pull that just goes to Schedule 4. This took a lot of effort to get to this place today in time. It's important to recognize how we got here today. And if you give me a little couple minutes here. I want to just talk a little bit about that. So first off, one of the things that we did was we went back to the original drawing board, the original engineers, the original plans on how this pipeline was built and how this pumping system was designed. We talked to experts, pumping experts. So Optimization Specific Energy is a company that specializes in making sure that pumping systems are optimized. And so we utilized their expertise. We used HDR, which is a very reputable national firm that helped us with doing the condition assessment that we did. The condition assessment included looking at 100 miles of this pipeline by putting an acoustic tool, a little kind of ball, if you will, into the pipeline, and it continuously went downstream using the current of the pipeline to essentially capture a lot of very valuable information. And what we did with that was we looked at that information, and it told us that this 25-year-old pipeline was in pretty good shape. That's a great news story right there. That's good. We also installed a number of pressure monitors along the pipeline so we could very well understand where pressure exceedances may or may not exist. And what we found out in doing that was that in Schedule 2, Schedule 2B, which is a pumping flow of about 42 million gallons a day, there actually are some pressure exceedances, and we heard our city manager talk a little bit about risk. There is risk in things that we do, and it's about minimizing that risk. And so when we looked at the pressures, the forecasted pressures for Schedule 3, there were also going to be some pressure exceedances. But the risk profile told us that the risk of going to Schedule 3 was no greater than what the risk was at Schedule 2. And so we decided to do that. We made a concerted decision based on the information that we had to go to Schedule 3. And thank goodness that we did that, because we have brought down nearly 3 billion gallons of additional water that would have not been brought down to our city had we not done that. In order to get to Schedule 4, there were some contractors and there was some outside additional talent and expertise that we needed. So last fall, our city council approved a nearly approximately $12 million contract with a company called H&S. And they helped us, and they're continuing to help us do improvements to the pump stations that we need to do. We were able to expedite some of the electrical work as part of that contract, because in order to push this pipeline and the pressures higher, we need more power. So we had to do some transformer upgrades, which was part of this project, and we were able to expedite that. The other thing that was important was when we looked at this pipeline, we recognized that there was some safety mechanisms that needed to be incorporated into it. So something called combination air relief vacuum valves were installed. And those were installed by a company called Rangeline. And they were able to install these valves with the line in service. We couldn't afford to take the line down to put these valves in. We did it, quote unquote, hot, which means we put these valves in with the line in operation. Interestingly, there was a person on the pipeline next to one of these valves when we went to 70 million gallons a day last week, and they heard a very loud sound near that or at that air relief vacuum valve. And of course, the initial reaction was, oh my gosh, that doesn't sound good. No, that's exactly what an air relief vacuum valve does. It relieves air out of the line so that air doesn't go somewhere else and cause a problem. So yet again, another great decision on the team's effort to put in the safety mechanisms to make sure that we are very well operating this line effectively. I want to just say again that this is a great opportunity for us to recognize the fact that outside of the city of Corpus Christi, outside the coastal bend, people are paying attention to what we do. We were recognized at the Underground Infrastructure Association as an Asset Management Project of the Year for this project. So we very much appreciate that. And as Nick Winkleman said, as he was quoted, we are extremely thankful to the CCW team that continues to protect and maintain the tremendous water supply asset that we have. So I'm going to let this. I'm going to let this kind of continue. It's a little video that we produced about 2 weeks ago prior to running the pipeline at Schedule 4. So our city manager was able to come out with the team. You can see some of the team members in the video discussing the coordination and the efforts that were needed to successfully implement the necessary changes to the pipeline. As this video kind of plays, I just want to say that The folks that are standing before me or with me today include Will Creech. He's our plant manager. He's been with the city for 13 years. Jared Chavarria, who has been with the city for 4 years in a utility technician 2. Gilbert De Los Santos, been with the city for 26 years as a utility technician 3. Ricardo Roldan, been with the city for 10 months, utility technician 1. And then we have Julio Roches, who's been with the city for 3 years as a utility technician. We have Humberto Torres, who's been with the city for 4 years as a utility technician 2. And then we have Connor Parker, who's been with the city for 2 years as a utility technician 2. There's a couple other teammates, as the city manager said, who couldn't be here today because they're actually out there operating the system. One of the other persons that I wish could have been here today that couldn't be here was a gentleman named Manuel Castillo. He's been with the city for 32 years. He's our pipeline manager. Manuel was going to go off into retirement in January, and we were very disappointed that that was going to happen because Manuel knows a heck of a lot about our system, obviously 32 years of service. And when he knew that we were going to try to, or we were going to bring this pipeline to Schedule 4, Manuel decided to stick around. So we thank Manuel for sticking around a little bit longer. We hope Manuel stays a lot longer than just a few months. But it's important for us that we have a dedicated work staff, which we do. We trust them. We know that they have the expertise and the skills to be effective at what we do, and they take their job seriously. I like to say we are in the business of protecting public health with providing safe drinking water. And as I mentioned a second ago, it's also about regional water partnerships, regional partnerships. And it starts with gentlemen like who I'm going to introduce here in a second, Mr. Pat Bruskowski, who's the general manager at Lavaca Navidad River Authority. And it also includes Brian Williams, and many of us know Brian very well. Brian is the general manager at the San Patricio Municipal Water District, and Brian is an extremely important partner. Both gentlemen will speak to you today, and so I'm going to conclude by just saying again how much I know we all do. I appreciate all the gentlemen that are standing here today with me. And with that said, we'll take a seat and we'll give Pat an opportunity to say a few words. Thanks, guys. Yes,
sir. Mayor, Council, Pat Brzezowski, Lavaca Navidad General Manager. I have with me today Scott Hartle, Manager of Operations. I've been with the authority for 29 years, 22 as a General Manager. Scott's been with us for 6 years. Since 1996, I've been building relationships with the city staff, and while the faces and names change, the commitment to our regional partnership has remained a constant. The operation that was put into play this past week is a culmination of months of communication and coordination between LNRA, the City of Corpus Christi, and other entities and groups that rely on us for water supply or provide services to our respective organizations. Today, our delivery is about 48,000 gallons per minute to the city and your customers, transporting water from the Colorado River near Bay City, co-mingled with water from Lake Texana near Edna, utilizing the full current pumping capacity of 5 pump stations that make up the Mary Roads Phase 1 and Phase 2 pipeline systems. This isn't possible without a continuous cooperative spirit shown by our respective staffs and attention to detail given by our operating groups. Some may think, as Drew had mentioned, that we could just push a button and the system would operate, but we wish it was that simple. In fact, the operation is a balancing act to safely synchronize the startup and operation of 16 pumping units at 5 stations in 4 locations, spanning 100 miles through 3 electric service provider areas, using 3 different communication services, all while navigating the multitude of electrical and mechanical performance faults, any one of which could shut down the entire operation in the blink of an eye. It's not complicated, it's just complex. But we knew that when we built it back in 1997, I'm sorry. We last ran Schedule 4 in 2002 and jointly decided that we'd only use it if we had to. Fast forward to 2025, and thank God it's available. Thank God for the vision created in 1994 and for the political will and tenacity to build the water conveyance system that you're relying on today. I mentioned how our staff and operating groups have worked together. I'd like to especially recognize some of Ellen Ray's key employees and their leadership and the respective teams. First is Shane Seco. He's director of our water delivery group. William Alex is director of our I&E service group. And Brandon Clark, he's our IT system administrator. Thank you all.
Thanks, Pat. It's a real privilege to have you here. And I'm going to introduce Brian Williams, and he's going to say a few words here. Brian is, as we all know, Brian is the general manager for San Patricio Municipal Water District.
Thank you, Drew. Mayor, council, I feel honored to be here before you this noon hour, getting close to the noon hour. I'm Brian Williams. A little bit about myself, about the district, and some of our collaborative history that the district has had with the city. I'd like to speak with that a few minutes. I'm the general manager at San Patricio. I've been in that position for 13 years. I have a bachelor's and a master's in engineering in civil engineering from Texas A&M University. I have an A water license and an A wastewater license. I have 36 years of experience managing government utilities, water, wastewater, and solid waste. My predecessor at San Patricio Municipal Water District was Jim Naismith, and he was in the general manager position for 13 years. There's a lot of history that goes in that. San Pat, we're a small workforce. We have 37 people, but that 37 people has a combined 550 years of time working for San Patricio Municipal Water District. That's, if anybody's doing the calculator, that's about 15 years on the average for each of our employees. San Patricio was created in 1951 by the 52nd State Legislature. San Patricio is governed by 7 directors elected from our 7 member cities and 1 additional appointed director. Our board has a combined 99 years of service on the board. I think that speaks to the trust and the confidence that our customers have in us. During that time, San Patricio has had many successes. And when I mention success, you have to say that our success has been facilitated by the successes at the city of Corpus Christi. San Pat got its start by operating a 24-inch treated water pipeline installed by Reynolds Aluminum, bringing water from the old Cunningham plant to serve Reynolds, and we took on some of our city customers. As the city of Corpus Christi grew, the region grew, and in the mid to late 1960s, we were able to contract for raw water from the city, and we built a pump station on the Nueces River and a treatment plant between Gregory and Ingleside. We expanded that plant in 1968. Choke Canyon Reservoir was completed in the early 1980s, and in 1989, that allowed the district to install additional facilities to treat 6 million gallons of water for the DuPont chlor-alkali plant. And it goes on with the Mary Roads Pipeline, Phase 1 in the late 90s. The additional water allowed us to construct our membrane treatment plant to meet the growing needs of our municipal and industrial customers. Then the Phase 2 pipeline, and now the completion of the pumping facilities to maximize the amount of water that can be delivered to the city under its existing water contracts and water rights agreements. That takes us from 55 million gallons a day to 70+ million gallons a day. Over the years, through our water rates, San Pat has been a financial partner on these projects, and we've been able to share in the benefits. So thank y'all, appreciate that.
Thank you, Brian.
Can I keep all? Oh, I thought I was used to that.
Oh.
No, just a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
Switching gears, it's really a double honor to stand up here and follow these 2 water professionals. Drew and Pat to talk about the recent success. Although Sam Pat was not intimately involved in this project, we are receiving some of the benefits. So the story continues. Successes by the city mean successes for the region and for San Patricio Municipal Water District. One last thing I'd like to say about the partnerships represented by the three of us that have been speaking. We share a common goal, providing safe, economical, and reliable water to our customers. And because of our professional knowledge and experience, and not just the three of us, but all the people that work in the background behind us, my 37 people, Drew, I don't know how many you have, hundreds? Pat? 81. We know we have a good idea of each of our capabilities, the weaknesses and strengths, and we encourage and push each other to achieve our goals. And through that group dynamic, synergy, whatever you want to call it, we're able to accomplish more because we're not duplicating efforts and we're not creating obstacles in each other's way. And one more last thing. We're still in a drought, so please everybody pray for rain sufficient to break the drought that we're in. So Mayor, I would like to say thanks once again and turn it back to Drew.
Thank you, Brian.
I think that pretty much concludes our presentation to you today, Mayor, Council. I think I can speak on behalf of the city manager just to say again how much we appreciate the opportunity to stand here before you today and give you and the community a little bit more insight as to the work that went into producing this water to our community. That, again, safe, reliable drinking water is something that this team really believes in. So I say thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Drew, and good timing. We've got a couple of comments, but I do want to just say a couple of things. Number one, I think it is something that is somewhat taken for granted. I mean, the average person doesn't know how critical and what it really took. I think you explained it right. You think you just go push a button or flip a switch and go, okay, we're going to get 20 more MGD. But this is truly historical, because there's no one in the state of Texas who can say, yeah, we're bringing on an extra 20 or additional 20 million gallons of water a day. That is huge right now. So I want y'all to stand up, our water team, and we owe you a big round of applause for what you do every day. Thank you for what you do every day. I know you're hearing it. You don't get to hear it every day, and we don't get to see you. We see you driving around. We don't really know what you're dealing with. Things, they're not in our world. Today, water is the new gold. You know, water is critical. What you do every single day and what you've done in this historic moment at 8:01, I think it was, or 8:00 something p.m. That night, you will always be a part of that. We appreciate what you do. You are bringing safe, clean, reliable water to this community, and that means life. That's what that means. And so, you know, for all you do every single day, some of you have been here a while, some of you haven't. You know, it's kind of a new chapter. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. And I know I have some council members who want to say a few words. Councilwoman Paxton.
Thank you, Mayor. You guys, you know, everything that we do up here, decisions and going through numbers and having to deliberate on what do we do next, wouldn't be possible without your dedication, expertise, skill set, and being out there and willing to do this. I think that nobody underestimates how important this step in our current need for water was. I mean, I don't know a plan anywhere that doesn't at least start at the base level with this crucial addition of bringing on this part of this pipeline. And on behalf of the city and our customers and this region, thank you for those hours, for those efforts, for making this possible. I'm so glad we get to share this with you this morning and have you guys come out here. It's an announcement It's a recognition, but I wish it was a commendation because you guys sure deserve it. And I know every time we'd get an update from Mr. Zanoni, be like, okay, that's great, good news. How are the guys? How are they faring? Because we know it's a lot of work out there. But truly, thank you for your efforts. We could not be celebrating this today without it. This was a vital piece, and we really appreciate you guys.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I also want to just echo what Councilman Kalen Paxson just said. We rarely ever get to see the actual workers. We get to hear from Drew and Stefan and Nick and some of the others, but it really is an honor to be here and to know and to see the faces and just know that we appreciate all your hard work. I know that there's, some that are here 30 years and some here, less than a year. The point is that y'all are working as a team, and it is showing. Again, historical, the 76, right? Is it 76 MGD that or is it less?
We're at 70, and we're reaching steady state and moving up as we speak.
Okay.
So we're at 70 today.
Okay, 70 today, but okay, not to push you, but yeah, we can do better. No. Do we know how much we can do? Do we know how much more?
So, the pipeline is designed, the pumping system and the pipeline is designed for 79. So, ultimately that's our goal.
Okay, so, all right. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Drew. Thank you for that update. And gentlemen, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Okay, so we're going to move on to, Peter, is that all you had? Correct? Yeah.
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
So yes, ma'am.
I have a point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Thank you. I went ahead and prepared a statement. So much has happened. Thank you. I just wanted to thank my family, my friends and colleagues and foes. I lost my brother Juan on Saturday. He was 78. He was an avid reader and was so proud of me and my position as a city council member. I just need to also acknowledge how grateful I am to the good people of this loving community. What I experienced this weekend with the publication of my medical condition in a very embarrassing and private matter restored my confidence and faith in the people. There is no place for bullying. No one deserves to work in a reign of terror. We all deserve a safe place to work, and I am confident and proud that I will continue to serve you with dignity. This matter will be resolved legally. One should never put themselves in a situation to be alone with a bully. I also encourage anyone to contact me if you feel the need to do so. Again, I am so grateful for my community. I can't express enough how grateful I am for the overwhelming support of our community. So with that, let's get back to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Gumpels. So as we proceed to item F, public comment, I'd like to take a moment to emphasize the importance of this business meeting. We handle significant matters concerning taxpayer dollars, making it imperative that we uphold the highest standards of decorum and adherence to our policies. Our core principles of openness, transparency, and inclusiveness guide our actions, and we aim to achieve them while respecting our City Council policy, which has been in place for 30 years. Public comment serves as one avenue for communication, but it certainly isn't the sole method. You can also reach out to members of this council by way of phone calls, emails, or even in-person appointments. With that said, let's proceed with public comment, keeping in mind the importance of decorum and adherence to this policy. So before we begin, I'd like to ask our city attorney, Miles Risley, to review the council meeting rules of decorum.
All citizens must be courteous, polite, and respectful of one another, including city council and city staff. The mayor and council members shall be referred to by title and/or title surname. All remarks must be addressed to the mayor and city council and not to the council members as individuals. Citizens are only permitted to speak on city-related subject matter. Speaking on any non-city related matter is prohibited. Loud, boisterous, profane, or obscene language or behavior is not allowed. Citizens must refrain from any disturbing noise, demonstration, or other act disrupting to the city council business.
Thank you, Mr. Risley. So individuals will be called upon in the order they signed up electronically. We will first hear in-person comments, followed by virtual public comments. Residents of Corpus Christi will be given priority over non-residents. Please state your name and the city in which you live prior to beginning your comments. And if you have, you do have 2 opportunities to make public comment on an agenda item or city-related business. First is at this present time, and second would be when we actually hear the item. So please select one option. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes, while non-resident comments are limited to 1 minute. And a visible timer positioned near the city secretary's desk will assist in managing the allotted time. If you have a petition or other relevant information, please present it to the city secretary and she will distribute it to us before you speak. So with that, we will start with Mr. John Weber.
Good day, Mayor and City Council. I understand the frustration the Council has regarding the far-field model from the June 25th Council meeting.
And because of that, there's been a decision and recommendations from outside legal and your legal team that right now we do not move forward with a formal far-field model, that the assessments that we've read, the mass balance that we've done, and the TCEQ requirements that we have met are okay at this stage of the project. I don't know if Janet wants to add to that, but that's the advice that Drew's team and our team have been given.
Yes, that's correct. So the city has to abide by TCEQ regulatory requirements and state law. In order to satisfy, as Councilwoman Campos's concerns about our permits, our goal is to defend the permits that we have been issued. We have a draft permit issued by TCEQ. We need to move forward and defend those. And that means the near-field, the core mix modeling we've done, and there's also a tier 2 ecological impact that we are studying. So far-field modeling is not involved in that, and it would take excess time. In fact, the time required would take us past the fall deadline for the TCEQ hearing that we're going to have on our discharge permit. So we wouldn't have time to do the far-field modeling for Inner Harbor, and the cost involved is tremendous. We're talking, $50,000 to $100,000 to run modeling that may or may not, that will not advance our project. It will not. So the legal has recommended that we don't trace that route.
Quotes by Jason Coughlin. There's been a decision and recommendations from outside legal and your legal team. We do not move forward with a formal far-field model. That's the advice Drew's team and our team have been given. According to Jason, the decision regarding the far-field modeling was made by outside legal and city legal. A quote from the city's attorney, "I'm sorry, that will not advance our project. It will not." According to the city attorney, a far-field model will not advance our project. It will very likely show the Inner Harbor is the worst location for a desal plant. That would explain this email that Drew sent to the outside attorney, city attorney, and Jason. Obviously, the COO of the water department isn't calling the shots regarding the far-field modeling. It is the outside attorney and city attorney that appeared to be calling the shots. Thank you, and have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Rachel Caballero.
Rachel Caballero, District 1. Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Chief Marco, for combating the speed racers. I'm sure their families are grateful for that, too. I am here in support of the far-field modeling proposed for the Inner Harbor experimental desalination project, despite the debauchery that occurred here last week. I would like an update on the water poaching event that occurred in Three Rivers across from Serna Ranch that was reported to the TCEQ and all of you in December of 2024. We would be naive to believe that a malfunctioning gauge as the cause of the recent water loss when there could be other possibilities of poaching near or around the the Nueces River. This is why commercial usage should be public information and not cost a community member $2,500 to obtain. There should not be a delay in releasing this public information request, as we are all trying to find solutions to our water issues. Having a malfunctioning gauge during stage 3 drought restrictions shows lack of leadership, management skills, and preparedness for this to have even occurred. These are rhetorical questions and no answer is expected. How long has this gauge been conveniently malfunctioning? Why did it take a community member's research to discover it? How long have the measurements been wrong? It is extremely embarrassing that decorum is being demanded of concerned community advocates during public comment, yet you all can have verbal altercations and yell at one another behind the dais and cannot be controlled. It is also extremely embarrassing and without morals or integrity that the health of an individual be politicized for political positioning. Any and or all involved should be ashamed of themselves. For the community's information, there was no internal investigation in December of 2024 when a council member's life was threatened. There was also no internal investigation when the city manager was using taxpayer-funded Corpus Christi police officers to escort him around for weeks. Never would I have thought the level of lowness could be reached here. We will continue to fight against the misinformation being told to our community members, and we will remind people of the individuals who have no moral integrity and continue to use our community as a self-funding bank account for themselves and their friends, and who are taking advantage of unknowing and uninformed community members. Have the day you deserve.
Thank you, Ms. Caballero. Sean Flanagan.
My name's Sean Flanagan. I live at 4218 Herndon Street in District 2. I have handed you a study that I think is worthy of your attention because the implications of this are tremendous. For the first time ever, AI, artificial intelligence, has been deployed to sift through the massive amount of data of all the studies that have been used to buttress the argument that man-made CO2 production causes climate change. As you can see on that study from its title, A Critical Reassessment of the Anthropological CO2 Global Warming Hypothesis, is the analysis done of all the data without any bias applied to it indicates that man-made produced CO2 does not produce climate change. It is a result of natural activities. At the bottom of the synopsis, you can find the link to take you to the study itself. The synopsis basically says that natural forces such as solar activity and temperature cycles are far more significant factors to climate change than CO2. Furthermore, polar ice core data indicates that CO2 increase follows, does not precede climate change. Now note in paragraph 4 of that synopsis, there's a criticism of this study. This study must be replicated to be decisive. It seems likely that it will be, though. The implications of this at Corpus Christi and all over the place is that our paradigm of thinking about energy needs to shift. If what this AI, first ever AI generated study analysis of the data of climate change science is correct, then there is no reason for us to be penalized for using carbon-based energy sources. CO2 is not a pollutant. Now you can produce pollution by using CO2 or carbon dioxide or carbon-based energy, But CO2 in and of itself is not a pollutant based upon an analysis of the data that buttresses all of the established consensus science that has for the last 20 years basically ruled. If what is said in this study is replicated, and I think it will be, this means that net zero, the Green New Deal are all based upon hoax science. If you take the bias out and you just look at the data does not produce the conclusions that have been used to advance all of this ridiculousness about man-made CO2 causing climate change. It just is not there, folks. And I think this was important enough for this council to be aware of this data. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Susie Saldana.
Susie Luna Saldana, District 2. I too come before you to talk about the decorum of the council, which has been very poor lately. To have Councilman Barrera make an accusation, if Councilman Cantu respond to it, and let me tell you, I'm appalled that somebody would bring up something when they have things that they have themselves, like $900,000 provided by industry. Not given, but for you to get elected along with others. Decorum, let's look at decorum. I see all of you up there. Half the time, some of you are eating. The other half the time, you guys are not listening. And then I come to find out that there's a councilwoman that has filed suit against the city. Well, let me tell you, if that councilwoman has filed suit against the city, she should resign. Because you get elected to represent the people and save us money, not to cost us money. I don't care what the issue is. The issue is you're there to represent the people, to save money for the people, and to be available to the people. That hasn't happened. It is a rotten shame that you are trying to make us have the decorum when you cannot have it yourselves. When there is a lack in it. When I say that some of you got $900,000 from a PAC that went out there to help you get elected, and all of a sudden, I'm for industry. I'm not ashamed to say I'm for industry. Don't be ashamed to say you're for industry, but don't make your votes be paid for. That's what it looks like to me. And to have someone degrade our city by being in a chair and suing the city, you have no shame.
Thank you, Ms. Saldana. Ron Graben. Is Ron Graben with us? Okay, Bob Catalano. Bob Catalano. Adam Rios. Is Adam Rios with us? Blanca Parkinson.
Blanca Parkinson, Corpus Christi. I would first like to clarify that I am not a desal expert. The desal expert with over 45 years of experience working on desal plants, reverse osmosis plants, is my father, my dad, Encarnacion Serna. He also happens to own the ranch that you all were or not you all, but somebody was poaching about 1 million gallons of water a day out of his private river. Anyhow, for some reason, I want to clarify that. It's been very hard for some of you to conceptualize a old Mexican local desal expert. He's an expert. Anyhow, he first came here in 2021, I believe, and he had one question, and it wasn't an environmental question, it was an engineering question. He had evaluated these permits, and his question was to Peter Zanoni, how are you going to dispose of all this sludge? Because he did the calculations, and you have to keep in mind, these are gargantuan flows. His calculation said you would need a truck every 4 minutes to dispose of it in the landfill. For some reason, he never got an answer from Peter Zanoni. I don't know what he was busy doing. Anyhow, fast forward 2024, another expert, a biologist in the community, brought him an amended application that the city has on the website. And so, of course, he looked through it, and he looked, and what was the amendment? The amendment was that, of course, the city and Freese & Nichols shifted the sludge. They shifted the disposal of it back into the bay. I'm here to address the lies that Jason Coughlin told you all last week. It was embarrassing to see you all praising him, because these aren't like little lies, they're big whoppers. They can easily be disputed. And if you look at this, you don't have to be an expert. If you can read, and you can read a flow chart, which I hope all of you can, it's very clear. So in the first page, it says Appendix G was replaced. So then you go to the flow chart, which just follow the orange line, okay? It doesn't get any simpler than that. Follow the orange line. You see the water going to the reverse osmosis plant, and then you see the one coming from the pretreatment plant down to the landfill, and you follow it, right? And it goes down to the landfill. Look at the quantities, and then look at the arrow that's going to the right, okay? The arrow that's going to the right is going to be blended, where that little gray circle is, with the effluent that Jason Coughlin's walking around with that little bottle of snake oil. It's gonna blend there, where that circle, and follow the orange line, and look at the quantities, and look at how much of that sludge. So your discussion that went on here for however long was pointless, fruitless. It was a waste of time, a waste of money, because everything you talked about them removing and putting back in, it's all going back in. Everything is gonna go back in. And we first came here with that issue that you're going to have to face now. It's showtime. You have to face that. It's going to accumulate in the harbor. And you're not, especially those of you who want to provide the water to industry, it's showtime, and you really need to address that.
Thank you, Ms. Parkinson. Isabel Ariza?
Isabel Ariza, District 2. I don't have stuff prepared. I just work and run over here during my lunch break. But there were a couple things that I did want to talk about, because I did watch the presentation twice. And one of the things that really struck me, and I feel like after listening to John and listening to Blanca, I mean, really, you guys just, I think, need to just own if you want to do it, and that facts really don't matter. You know, because there have been so many documentable disputes, or like, I guess, misrepresentations of the truth by people that you pay a lot of money to. You know, you guys are talking about the far-field model and wanting the far-field model. I appreciate that. But they're not doing the far-field model. They're doing, what is it, a hydrodynamic something, quién sabe qué thing. It's not a far-field model. Not only that, they also stated in the comments, if you trust them, that anything outside of the regulatory mixing zone could be qualified as a far-field model. So whether it's 500 feet or out into the Gulf of Mexico, I'm paraphrasing what they said, that could be a far-field model. So what you guys have to think about and put your critical thinking hats on is where would the far-field model be done, right, if it does get done? Because where they do it is gonna matter. And even if $1 million is way too much to do in your brain about how to spend on a far-field model, well, before it was 50,000, maybe 100,000. The city manager was claiming $1 million. Even that, if it's at the best case scenario, it only costs us $757 million. That's only, what, 0.13% of the budget that's allocated. So that's really small. It's a lot, but it's really small, especially when you think about the ramifications of having a I don't even think it's real. Actually, I think this is just an opportunity for people to take our public dollars and get rich. And if that's what it is, own it, welcome it. You guys are pro-business, right? Pro-corporate welfare, just own it. I think you just need to stop trying to lie to us, because those of us who have been paying attention, imagine how pissed off we are after coming here for 9 years about the problems that we're seeing in the community and the disregard for our concerns. Yeah, it's cumulative. The other thing is I want to mention that spending $15,000, $25,000 for a juvenile library card instead of actually investing in the library is disgusting. The city's going to have $9.5 million of taxes for the Crime Control and Prevention Committee, and the Crime Control and Prevention Board doesn't want to spend a single amount of that on prevention. Nothing. That also is disgusting. So if people want something with prevention, you're going to have to come to the Crime Prevention Board meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Araiza. Susan Lamb? Is Susan Lamb with us? Jim Klein. Councilman Jim Klein.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Klein. I live in District 2 here in Corpus Christi. I wrote this out in an effort to remain calm and refrain from profanity while making this public comment. I'm appalled and dismayed at the actions taken by the City of Corpus Christi staff to relate to the local news media the health circumstances of Councilwoman Sylvia Campos. This action is unacceptable to me and to the people of Corpus Christi, and should prompt the dismissal of those involved in this supremely stupid and cruel act of bullying. Given my experience with city operations, I believe this could not have occurred without the knowledge and/or endorsement of the city manager. Consequently, I'm calling for the termination of the current Corpus Christi city manager and urge the council to initiate a search process to select a replacement. I do not make this lightly. I have supported several of the city manager's changes as improvements to our city, while others I believe to be deeply detrimental to Corpus Christi. This recent action, however, has forever changed my estimation of the city manager. Corpus Christi will be far better once he is removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. I'm sorry. Please, yeah, thank you. I'm asking everybody to please abide by decorum. There is no clapping. Ms. Caballero, there's no clapping and there's no remarks to be made, please. Mr. Matt Manning?
Good morning. Attorney Matt Manning, I reside in District 4. As all of you know, I represent Ms. Campos. I'm not here speaking in that capacity. I'm instead want to counsel the council that you should consider that there is a due process issue as it relates to going forward with a desal with an open HUD complaint. It's my understanding that that complaint was reopened in October. As you know, a hallmark of the United States Constitution, as recognized in case law, is the notion of due process. So accordingly, while you have an open complaint, I think it is against the community there in that particular district to move forward with desalination without the resolution on that complaint. Now, we know that the crux of this is, unfortunately, that part of the community has been left out to dry through years of inaction and in actions taken by this council. But the problem you have now is that you have a compounding of that with moving forward without there being resolution on that. So I would just ask that the council remember its duty to consider the due process of the people who live in that community as it continues forward with desalination, and consider that the people there who have unfortunately not been the recipients of their fair end of this council's decisions will be left out to dry if you go forward without resolution in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Aileen Trejo Chavez. Is Aileen with us? Yeah, oh, you are.
Good afternoon, Aileen Trejo Chavez, District 2. I'm here today. I'm deeply disheartened
by the way that the city has chose to leak a story about Congresswoman Sylvia Campos, my representative of District 2. This was not just a betrayal of trust, but a blatant act of disrespect towards someone who has proven time and time again to be a valuable asset to our community. Sylvia Campos has dedicated herself for the people, fighting tirelessly for progress and pushing for policies that improve the lives of many, myself included. For her to be subjected to such a tactless leak undermines the hard work that she's done and sends the wrong message about the treatment of our public servants. This is especially highlighted today, given the displays that we all witnessed. What's even more troubling is that the mayor's apparent lack of concern regarding the ethics of this leak. Rather than condemning the unethical nature of how this story was handled, the mayor's response has been disturbingly silent. We should expect more from our leadership, especially when it comes to defending those who serve our community with integrity and dedication. Sylvia Campos deserves our respect, acknowledgement, and support, not the kind of dishonorable treatment she received in this situation. It is our collective responsibility to stand against this kind of harmful, disrespectful journalism and call for accountability. Our leaders should be held to a higher standard, one that reflects the values of transparency, fairness, and respect for those who work tirelessly to make our communities better. It's time for us to speak up and demand better, not only for Sylvia Campos, but for every person in public service who deserves to be treated with dignity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Trejo Chavez. Michael Miller.
Michael Miller, District 2. If there's one thing I have in this world, it's a lot of friends. Not just from here in Corpus Christi, but from all over the state. They lovingly refer to me as Mr. Corpus Christi due to my interest in local politics. Every time any of them receives any kind or sees a news story or sees something on a news feed that relates to Corpus Christi, it gets texted to me. I have heard many of you council members and the mayor refer to a certain statement. All eyes are on Corpus Christi. This is true, but it's for the wrong reasons. First of all, council must treat each other with respect and dignity. We must listen to understand an opposing viewpoint, not to respond. I'm not going to specifically address the most recent unconscionable news story, but for me, it highlighted a lack of empathy and basic human decency that exists in this building, our building. I recommend immediately that the city manager schedule sensitivity training for staff and for this council so that I can get text messages from my friends in a positive light and not accompanied by a cringe emoji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And Jason Hale.
Jason Hale, Corpus Christi, District 2. Hi, council members. I believe elected city officials should be treated with respect, especially by city staff, which was why I was disturbed by the news that came out this weekend where a council member's health condition was exploited to make baseless allegations. Where is our empathy? Where is our compassion? I believe this type of behavior is abhorrent and needs to be dealt with appropriately. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Do we have Mark Menster on video?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
You can hear me. Okay. One second. Mark Menster, Corpus Christi. I'm here speaking again today, looking out for the working class of Corpus Christi. Whatever millions of gallons you are generating from wells, pipelines, it will get sucked up and sold away to bring more industry here. Just one company uses 44,000 times what a residential household uses. From 2023 numbers, I'm talking about Valero uses 8 million gallons plus a day compared to residential use of around 200 to 300 gallons. That's just one company. That's 44,000 times annually, not double, not 100 times, not 400 times, 44,000 times just for Valero. I'll refrain from going over how much Saudi Arabia and Exxon use. Those numbers are more relevant than the 50, 60, 70, 80% industry usage number that we never get a clear answer on. Why were these wells or pipeline projects not done years ago? You knew we would be here in stage 3 drought. All these efforts are because of poor management of our water.
Mr. Munster, hold on 1 second, please.
He's making questions, and he's presenting questions of the city council or staff, which is inappropriate.
Okay, Mr. Munster, no questions. You can continue. Thanks.
We residents, voters, and taxpayers have high standards in TCEQ. The people who appoint the TCEQ commissioners have their massive share of corporate and billionaire donors. We all know this happens. This plant is to meet industrial water demand. Do not try and sell it as otherwise. Instead of making propaganda podcasts, how about you present any concrete proof or evidence that this plant makes sense for residents? Rhetorical question. You wanted $2,000 plus for the details numbers behind charts presented here at council whenever you were spending time making content. It's a joke. Whatever you say about economic development, I don't believe or accept your answer. As a tax professional through years of experience, I see firsthand, and my perspective was changed when I saw and processed PPP loan corporate handouts and see the federal tax advantages and incentives and strategies available to large corporations that individual working taxpayers will never have access to. How does giving more water to polluters help working families? Profits do not trickle down. If you still fall for that, I very much question your analysis and critical thinking. When you say these companies provide jobs, I do not accept that either. Have some creativity or think harder. We could do very well to create jobs or work to create better healthcare, public transit, education, jobs that make our parks and public spaces better for all residents. But why don't we do that? Because of greed. Teachers, healthcare workers all across this country are underpaid and understaffed because profits matter more than people. Imagine we had healthcare for all, or our utilities weren't going to rise because utility rates aren't going to rise because of mega plants being built to meet industrial demand. These problems are why so many of us that speak are involved in local organizations. We want to connect and work with others in the city to work towards change for the better, towards improving the everyday lives of people, maybe making their lives a little easier. We are tired of officials making decisions that prioritize their corporate PAC donors. A council member talked last week about a town hall hosted by a local nonprofit that they didn't even bother showing up to have a conversation at. At least these organizations hosted town halls. The city wasted time planning on one just to cancel it and never reschedule it. Do not pretend that the industry, city, and large entities do not collaborate together in their own organizations. There was a comment earlier about the AI study about climate change. One Google search, you could see how easily debunked that was. Last week, he talked about trusting the science.
Thank you, Mr. Munster.
Thank you.
Okay, and I understand he is, Mr. Munster is the final speaker today. Ms. Peacock isn't online.
Okay. All righty. Well, that concludes our public comment period. And we will move on to the agenda, our consent items. So I'm going to pull consent item number 2. This item, we had talked about reallocating some funding. So I'd like to go ahead and make or amend the ordinance to strike out the $167,309 and replace it with $142,309, and to strike out the $50,000 and replace it with $75,000. So this action is going to decrease the funding for MHID by $25,000 and increase the funding for Mission 911 by $25,000. Mr. Risley, is there anything else, any other amendment we need to make to this? And this is what we had spoken about doing last week. Is there anything in addition?
No, the city secretary had been supplied with all the amendment language.
Okay, then that's correct. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. And now the motion carries. So now we'll vote on the ordinance as amended. Please submit your vote electronically. Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Jennifer, thank you. So is there any request from the public? Well, no, I'm sorry. There's only one item on the agenda, so no request should be made. We'll move on to individual consideration items, numbers 3 and 4. Item number 3 is a resolution authorizing the negotiation and execution of 15 professional services contracts for professional engineering services in an amount not to exceed $22 million, right? Dollars 500.
Just say 22 million.
22,000. I'm sorry, 500. Yeah. Sorry about that. Mr. Edmonds.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services, and the item before you is a mass selection of engineering consultants and an authorization to negotiate professional engineering contracts up to the stipulated maximum amount. For returning council members, this is the same process that we've used for Bond 2020 and Bond 22 to help us expedite program delivery. So first, I'd like to review some of the details about the bond program. So as everybody knows, Bond 24, all propositions passed last November. There was 89.5 allocated for streets projects. Now, some of those were construction. 12 of those projects require design engineers. The Proposition E, sales tax reauthorization also passed, and that was funding street activities. And there are 2 projects that were proposed to be funded out of that sales tax that also require design services. And additionally, there was 1 project that was in the CIP that will require design services. So what we did, those were all similar services. They had different funding sources, but we bundled that all together in one RFQ. So for some of the new council members and the general public, I'll provide a little background on why we do things this way. So state law requires you to procure professional engineering services using qualifications-based selection. So the way that works is that we publish a request for qualifications. This RFQ was published in October of last year, and then you provide an amount of time for the consultants to prepare documents called statements of qualifications. Then after we receive those, we impanel a review committee that will review those written statements of qualifications and then score them and produce a ranking. And then in some cases, we'll do interviews, and in this case, we interviewed these firms, and you have a combined score based on the written statement of qualifications and the interview score, and that produces a ranking. And then we map the projects to the firms based on that ranking. It's a bit laborious, but that's the law. That's what you have to do when you're procuring professional services. It has to be based on qualifications. And then you negotiate a fair and reasonable fee. If we're not able to negotiate with the highest ranked firm, we'll go to the second ranked firm. Okay, this is some of the benefits of doing this the way that we're doing it, where we're taking these all in block. So it helps us to expedite the delivery of these projects. It provides greater transparency. We're getting council to review the selections and estimated fee amounts. This helps reduce the cost of doing this and staff time and council time involved in getting these items passed. And in years past, we'd bring these contracts individually for council approval, which takes your time to review those individually. It takes our time to prepare those agenda items. So it's more efficient on us to bring it in block. And if you reduce time, you're reducing cost. So this item is recommending contracts with 15 firms, and the maximum aggregate amount was just over $22 million. I'm not going to go any further in here. So at this point, I'd like to open it up for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Jeff. Yes, Councilman Barrera.
Hey, Jeff, you know, I know it's complicated and I don't want to take up your time right now, but could we get some time? So I just want to figure out how the procurement process and how we calculate the scoring method. I'm just curious.
Okay, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean,
we'd be happy to sit down with you and go through it.
Yeah,
So,
I support you, and I support it, and I just want to have a better understanding.
okay, and I'll give you a short answer, and we can meet and go through a long one.
Yeah, we'll meet, and then we'll talk about that.
Well, I'd like to, give me 10 seconds and I can go over it. So we're looking at the qualifications of the firms based on the firm's experience and based on the experience of their proposed personnel. So when you get a statement of qualifications, it's got descriptions of projects that the firm has worked on. It's got resumes of their staff, and what you're looking for is projects and experience that check the boxes of what you think you're going to need on that project.
But I'd still like to meet with you.
Absolutely, sir.
All right, thanks.
Councilman Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, I know we've had these conversations before, and it seems there's some preferential treatment to certain firms over others. And I would like to have the individual scoring of the from whoever was on the selection or review panels to see those individual scores. Like I said, I've been very upfront about my displeasure with the process. I know it's state law that you have this subjective process, it takes place, but I'd like to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make comment on item number 3? Okay, there being no one, we will close public comment, and I will entertain a motion to approve the ordinance. We have a motion and we have a second. Please submit your vote. The motion carries. Item number 4 is an ordinance approving the addition of 20 full-time positions and equipment to the Engineering Services Department budget. Mr. Edmonds.
Good afternoon again. Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services. So the item before you is what we refer to as a mid-year budget adjustment for my department's annual operating budget, and more importantly to our staffing levels that are approved in the current budget. So to help illustrate a little bit about why this is needed, I'm going to go over a little bit about the capital budget process, and I think this will help you understand why this is happening somewhat out of phase with the annual budget. So the slide in front of you is a snapshot of the CIP that was approved last year. And so the way the CIP works is that it's an annual refresh of our capital budgeting plan. Now, there are some entities that do this on a 2-year cycle. Some of it do on a 5-year cycle. Here in Corpus Christi, we do it on an annual cycle. But it's not like you're starting from zero. It's basically an annual refresh on our capital plan. So last year, council passed about $1 billion CIP. And then, as we mentioned previously, the bond referendum happened in November. Council passed this in September. And that Bond 24 added 38 projects to that portfolio. So a little bit about what we do. So our mission is to manage the delivery of the capital construction portfolio. We currently have about 100 active construction projects with an unexecuted value of about $600 million, which means that is work yet to do on those contracts. So these are contracts that have already been awarded by City Council. They're underway either by AE firms or construction companies, and we're managing that process to ensure that we're getting value for money, that they're getting the answers they need, and getting paid on time. So last year's CIP and the bond referendum passage increased the workload on us, and to effectively manage that increased workload, we need some additional staff. Now, our costs are actually budgeted within those CIP projects. So the fiscal impact of this is there's no additional appropriation needed. We're well within the funds that are already appropriated within the CIP for what we do. We have a cost target of 6%. We try to stay below 6% of the throughput of the projects we're managing, and our actual costs have actually been going well below 5%. And even in some recent months, it's been below 4%. So that's kind of the equivalent of making more soup by pouring in water. So the last 3 months, we've had an average just below 30 million a month. That gives you an idea of where we're at annually, and those aren't usually the high months for construction. So I would not be surprised if we don't exceed 400 million for the fiscal year. Now,
we have a motion and a second, but I'm going to go ahead and open public hearing and then take a couple of questions. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make comment on item number 4? Okay, there being no one, we'll close public comment. Councilwoman Vaughn.
So when your projects were approved, the bond, the billion, whatever it is, did you have the 20 employees? Are they included in your budget?
No, so we prepare our budget at the same time that the CIP is developed. So, and then, of course, we didn't know what the outcome of the bond referendum was going to be. We did know that the CIP as proposed was going to be a delta. So based on guidance that was given citywide, we kept a flat staffing level with the preparation of the budget last year. And the discussion at that time was that, okay, if the bond referendum passes and CIP passes at current level, we're probably going to need to come back with a mid-year adjustment.
Okay. In the last 2 years, how many employees have you added to your department?
So I've got a slide up.
Just an estimate. I don't have to have the exact.
Y'all see this? Last 2 years, I would say, well, this past year was about flat, not many. So we probably added a couple. I'm trying to read the graphic there. The line on this graphic is our staffing level.
And how many do you have in your department?
This will take us up to 120. 120? Correct.
Okay, and for the 20 employees you're talking about, what's their role? What are you needing them for?
This is for construction inspection folks, mostly. So one thing we did last year, and we did it within our existing budget and our existing staffing profile. So there's an increasing number of large, complicated treatment projects, water treatment, wastewater treatment, and in recognition that we really needed to better staff those projects, we created a division that's focused solely on those type of projects. So we did that within the existing budget. So we're plussing that up. We're adding construction inspectors in that division. The other division that handles everything else is not treatment construction, also adding inspectors. And then we're adding folks that I'll call administrative staff that are in the back office function, that are financial controls, getting people paid, that sort of thing. And they support the full organization from AE contracts to construction contracts.
And I think you had in here vehicles?
We need vehicles for inspectors.
How many are you talking about?
We have a total of, I'm counting. Okay, I'm going to go with the answer I'm getting from them. It's not gee-hawing with what I got on the slides.
And just curious, what kind of vehicles do you get and what do they cost?
Oh, my gosh. We usually get pickup trucks for the inspectors. It's just regular pickup trucks.
I don't know what they cost. It's according to what you get. I'm just curious what you're thinking about spending for a vehicle. $55,000. Well, that's not a very big one, is it? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to make an introduction. So I'm calling the Lifeline. This is Claudia Fernandez. She's my assistant director. She runs that, what we call our support services division, that is all of those back office functions.
And I'm not criticizing you for wanting more employees, but this to me is a really, really big ask, especially when I know that we're going to be cutting the budget next year. And that concerns me for the other departments that are going to have asked for their departments. And I feel like we're getting a heads up on them for the year, because once they approve this, you're going to be approved and it's going to be in it because you're going to have employees in it. So that's a concern for me. So I just think every office, every department should have the opportunity to get to ask too. They're not getting to ask in the middle of the time. So my thought is why not wait until we get into the budget process again to do this so the others have the same opportunity as you do?
Well, I'm going to attempt to answer that. Okay. So, you know, my department's a little bit different than other departments in that it's really hard to look at this in the context of a fiscal year, because when a project's approved in the CIP, that creates tasking for us for minimum 3 years, and it can be 5, 6 years, depending on the size and scale of the project. So what we're executing in any given fiscal year are projects that have been approved with past bond programs, past CIPs, and that sort of thing. So we can be a little bit out of phase with the way things are going. Now, I understand the concern about cost control, and if you'll agree with me that 6% is about reasonable, which I think compares favorably with peer organizations like U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Naval Facilities Command. When you look at our average size project, Army Corps does similar things. They actually charge more money. So if you'll agree with that, that 6% will make this thing self-controlling. That, you know, we need to be within the budgets that are approved in the CIP. And if we start downward on that, I'm going to be the one up here going the other direction, because otherwise those costs will start exceeding our cost targets. And
all of this comes out of the general fund, correct?
No.
No?
Councilwoman, can I add to both your last question and the general fund one? So the funding for all these positions come out of the bond program, out of GO bonds, and it can only be used for specific services. So project oversight, inspection oversight is all related to the bond program, so it's an eligible use. So as an example, we can't use the bond funds to hire librarians or police officers or firefighters. So there's no competition necessarily amongst the departments. Yeah, and we would have added this in the budget last summer, but we didn't want to presume the bond program would pass. So we plan to come kind of mid-year now and ask for the positions.
Well, that makes a difference to me.
Yes.
So it comes out of the bond program.
Yeah. Right.
And revenue bonds, both GO and revenue bonds.
Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, Jeff, do you anticipate our CIP to be at the level it is today for the foreseeable future?
Well,
and what I mean by that is like over 800 million.
So I don't have a crystal ball on that, but what I've got is what's published in the CIB book, which used
for this next.
Now, if you look at the 3-year CIP that's in the last approved CIP, it was averaging about $650 million. So last year we awarded $520 million worth of contracts on the front end, and we put out about half that amount in payments going out. So my caboose is still trying to catch up with my engine, if you will. I'm thinking we might get 400 or maybe a little north of 400 through construction, and this is going to help us do that. I don't think it's a real heavy lift to get from that 500 million to the 600 million increment, and I could probably go out on a limb and say I think we could do that with the proposed staffing here. Beyond that,
Okay, considering, you know, the amount of debt that we have as a city, I'm hesitant to continue putting the pedal to the metal, so to speak, on maxing out the credit card here. So I think there's some challenges there. Is it your intent to terminate the contract with AGCM?
To terminate it?
Well, we did a contract with AGCM to supplement the workforce in terms of project management or inspections and those kind of things. Is your intent by hiring these 20 people to terminate that contract?
We're actually still using that contract.
So wouldn't it be more advantageous to expand that contract as opposed to increasing our FTEs with the city? That way, if the if we don't continue with the capital improvement plan the way it is, you're not having to let people go.
That could be an option, and that is how we did this a lot in the past. Now, I'll say...
Is AGCM not a good company to do this with?
No, I think AGCM is an excellent company.
Are there not other companies that could do this as well?
There are other companies. I would say that where we are today, that's in a different place than we were, say, 5-6 years ago, is that we have, I feel like, achieved salary parity with the private sector. And so it used to be that folks like AGCM could outcompete us in the labor market. So given the comp plan that we had at the city, AGCM did a much better job of recruiting. We're in a position now where we're either on parity or outcompeting AGCM. So they're having trouble producing staff for us right now.
Okay, so they're having trouble producing staff, so you assume that they would rather work for us than AGCM?
I think we're in that posture right now.
Considering how many openings we have at the city, it doesn't necessarily ring like it would happen overnight.
We're running a 4.5% vacancy rate in engineering.
I would hope that we would be able to leverage some of the private companies out there like AGCM. Hopefully we could do more of a competitive bid, unlike last time where we just handed them a contract. But it's, as opposed to increasing our own staff, I think we should leverage the existing companies that are out there that are professionally doing this thing, so we don't have to increase our FTEs, because there's a lot of cost with that. Councilwoman Vaughn says we have to buy vehicles. Well, if we contract that out, we don't have to buy vehicles. Then we don't have to maintain them. And then we'd have to add people at asset management to maintain those vehicles. So there's ramifications with other aspects to what you're asking for other than just these 20 individuals.
We do have it on our to-do list to put out a procurement on that type of staff augmentation service. We have been rushing that forward because we've still got capacity on the AGCM contract, and like I said, they've faced difficulties getting people that they could offer to us. So,
well, they have other contracts as well, I'm sure.
I'm sure, yes.
Okay, well, with that, I can't support this. So because of all the other ramifications associated with it, I'd rather increase the contract to supplement our staff. That way we don't grow our staff. And that applies to not just you, but pretty much on other aspects that we do. Thank you.
Councilman Paxson.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, thank you for your presentation and for the information that we received in the packet. I know your department is incredibly crucial to our operations. There's a lot of things that we talk about in projects that are both active and upcoming, but I also had some questions that were very similar to those vocalized by Councilman Vaughn and Hernandez. If I'm looking at and forgive me for holding this up, but if I'm looking at your chart here, it looks to me like you've gone up 12 persons from 2020 to 22, roughly. There's not like a great check mark on here. And then from 22 to 24, it looks like we did another 20 staff member jump. So it looks like in the lifespan of this graph that we actually had increased a little over 30 staff members in the last 4 years, which if you're sitting at about 96, that's about a 30% increase. And going back to your blue lines, which are meant to...
That's the financial throughput through the department.
Right. It's nearly doubled here, or maybe a little bit more than doubled. So there's about that 20% delta there. My concern is also the same. I see that we spiked tremendously in this CIP budget, and I'm not saying that you couldn't use the extra help. By all means, you certainly have your hands full. But what happens after that? If we do decide that we're not, in favor of continuing this trend in CIP, now we have full-time employees and we have spiked by this proposal, another 20, what happens after that? We're going to kind of be tied on to those staff members. And so if we see a huge drop in this CIP, we still are carrying that number of full-time staff members. And you mentioned there being a 4% vacancy. Is your 96, that's on another page here where you have it kind of broken down into 4 sections. I count about 96. Is that 96 the full capacity, or are you still 4% down on that?
I'm not sure we're capturing everybody in that 96. So there's
it looks like at that top.
On here, so I think the delta there, we actually pay for a person in communications. We actually pay for a person in human resources that supports our department, and we pay our attorneys listed here. I think that's the delta, but we're 100 and
we're 103.
103.
Oh, yeah. So she's not counting the ADs.
Oh, okay. Okay. Claudia's helping me out. So those numbers are the positions underneath. That's not counting the AD positions and the attorney. So the people at the top are not in that number.
Got you. Okay. So I'm sorry, one more time. I counted 96, and so those top roles are not included in that? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And that's 6 positions?
That takes you 102.
102, okay. Apples and oranges. So again, with that workforce size, is the 4% that you said that you have vacancy in those positions, is that inclusive in that 96? Or is 96
That's counting
full?
the vacant positions.
That's counting the vacant positions. So at full quota right now, that would be 96, but we don't have all those full.
Yeah, and it's almost impossible to get to vacancy of 0. And
Sure. I guess then my other concern, again, to just kind of put that in a nutshell, is one for me is if we don't continue this trend with CIP, now we have this swell in these full-time staff members. And then secondary, I kind of feel like to make a decision on a $2 million sustained change without seeing the full picture of what we're doing in all the other departments, it feels a little premature to me because I don't have the full picture. If I've got an expense that's going to make a big delta and I need to agree to it, I kind of need to see what else is changing on there for me. So please know I support you, your department, and your efforts, but this one's a hard one for me today.
Councilman Roy.
Thank you for your presentation. Two things. Well, let me ask this question first. How long do you estimate that it will take for you to hire those vacant positions?
I think it's probably going to take a few months.
So you think you can hire that many positions in a few months? There's that big of a pool of engineers out there.
Well, these aren't engineers.
So they're engineers and other.
Well, I'll say that's a stretch goal. If this gets approved, we're going to try and hire them as quickly as we can.
Okay. Is it possible, could we, because I listened to the other council members, and I think they bring up some valid points. Is it possible that maybe what we could do is compromise here and do half and then use the pool that you use as far as the contractors go? Because I think that if we end up not needing those positions, and like it's been stated here several times that we have to lay those positions off, but I think we could have the flexibility of trying to achieve what you want to achieve, but do that in terms of cutting your staffing requirements to bring them on board in half, and then use the other as contracted labor. I think you'll get the same results, but I think if you have to move all of a sudden because your goals have changed, then the risk there is not as big, and I think you'll be able to have more flexibility. So that's what I would recommend. At the same time, I think you could go ahead and know that you'll have a means to cover yourself. So that's what I'm recommending.
Well, let me respond to that. So I'm not going to object vigorously to that. Anything I could get would help. Regarding the concern about putting these people on and then, we wind up overstaffed. So I think it's important to know that we don't change dramatically from 1 year to the next. So even if we zero out the CIP, these are all multi-year contracts that we're under that's driving this current demand. And if we do that, if we decide to skip a bond cycle, dramatically reduce the CIP, I'm going to have time to course correct due to that. So what we would start doing is not filling positions. We would try to keep our cost within that 6% threshold of money that is going out the door.
Councilman Scott.
I was trying to figure out a nice way to say this. So I had a conversation similar to this back during the campaign that, I'm okay with supporting it, but when it comes time to, if you don't end up at the rate of work that you have, I just want everybody to know, I think you have great people, but I wouldn't lose too much sleep if we had to riff the folks, right? So if you're doing 30 million a day a month and it goes to 15, then the answer is, you make a change. And I just want to be upfront with you, so that if that does happen, then you kind of know where I stand. My general position is, I want this work done, and I don't want it done tomorrow. I want it done today. In fact, I don't want it done today. I want it done by, 2 o'clock. So if these additional people help you get it done, faster, cheaper, better, faster, friendlier, then I'm supportive. I do think you need to keep those contractor agreements in place, because I appreciate your ambition and support of the process, but I mean, we don't know if you're going to be able to hire them or not, right? And so I think that's why important. Because again, Jeff, all I really care about, right, is getting that stuff done, not tomorrow, today. And so if this helps you get it, I'll be supportive of it. But if we do reach a point where we slow down this, then I will support, changes. So, right?
Well, and I'll make an absolute commitment, not just you, but to the manager, to the council. We're going to monitor that, and if we can't support it within that 6% of throughput criteria, we're going to be voluntary.
That's a good point. That meant a lot to me to know that those funds are embedded in the bond program. Yeah. I just don't want to be out on the road 60 miles from Corpus and need somebody to draft, and you refuse to let me draft you because I've made some commitment or comment at a council meeting. So, I'm supportive. I do think you need to keep the private contractor contracts in place, and then get her done, man. Get her done. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Barrera.
Thank you, Mayor. Just along that lines, and Mark's campaign promise was to fix the dang streets. So, so 2 o'clock. So I want you to know that. So I just want to reiterate, that and I've been using this term a lot lately because I've been using it in my industry as well. But the key performance indicator is 6%. Now, do you know where you're at right now? Overall?
Well, the most recent statistic we had on that was under 4%.
It's under 4%. So right now, there may be an opportunity that all these individuals that, because of the efficiency that you're maintaining. So in actuality, there's a 2% savings that you're accommodating right now. Okay, and then you figure over the course of, you said you're burning through 30 million a month. So somebody do the math for me, that's $600,000?
360,000. 360. Más o menos.
Okay. Now, yeah. So, $360,000. I'm thinking
$360 million a year, and the last 3 months are about $360 million a year. And if you do the 6%, that gets you north of 20 million. And what we're asking takes us to 15 some change.
Okay, so you're already saving that already.
Yes, sir.
Basically. Right. Okay, well, good. That's good information to have. I think that's one of the things that we need to have. And that being said, and then I just want to say, I know I get on my colleague all the time when he uses the term credit card. This is obviously borrowed money for assets. It's not. We're not going out and having dinner and putting it on a credit card and then letting it stang out, or whatever the case is, or buying luxuries. These are particular projects that are tied to an asset, just like purchasing a home or purchasing a building, something that we own, so that the citizens own. So what is it now? I was also going to ask how long is the hiring process. I think a couple of months is pretty ambitious, because I know people call me, says, hey, I applied at the city. Man, I'm still waiting. I mean, I'm not to dog on HR, but for people, for a contract and funds administrator, I'm sure you're not going to find one out at Labor Ready. A senior contract funds administrator, grants and contract specialist, engineering project specialist. I think, the time to, Peter or Michael, what's the time usually that we advertise just for the position?
It depends on the position, Councilman. Could be 2 weeks to 2 months, depends on the nature of the position. And do we do an internal only, or do we recruit locally, or do we recruit nationally? So
yeah, and I think there's some complexity to this. So I think, I don't see that you're getting up to your 20 till almost until the next budget is in.
He'll probably take, Jeff, the department, and his team may phase them in as well. If it looks like work slowing, he's not going to start hiring people. So the 20 will be over time, probably 2 to 6 months, that range. And it depends on the market, depends on conditions and so on. So Jeff may have been a little ambitious on the 2 months, but the goal is to monitor it and not try to slam them all filled immediately, because he may want to phase them in to stay within the budget, that type of thing, and project work. And that's why they're professionally managing this constantly. It's not on autopilot.
Yeah, and that's why I support it, and that's why I jumped out of the chute, because I know, because it almost works the same way basically in our business. We have, a lot of business called the EBITDA, and there are certain key points that we decide, okay, at what point do we need to be able to service the amount of contracts that we have, and that key performance indicator is at 6%. Have we determined, and let me see how much time I have. All right, she's going backwards. I'm halfway there. So have we determined what that, let's say, for example, that KPI is when we're using outside resources? And those are a perfectly good answer.
I think we need to look at that.
That'd be something we could use Talson for, I would think. We're paying them. So what is it? That's something I'd ask. What is it? The other thing is, I'm just curious, what's the average tenure of your employees? Any idea? No is a perfectly good answer. Okay, you don't have to think about it yet, but I'm not going to be. I don't want to be. I don't want to get an idea. It's just in this particular. And the reason being is, once again, if we have a tenured employee that's with us like 20 years or 30 years or something of that nature, then that's a higher caliber employee, more efficient, understands basically how the process works. So if I just think that helps us in the decision-making process. I obviously support it. I think, well, my hat's off to you that you're within, you're saving that KPI about 30%, which is a huge amount when it comes to being able to provide the labor to do so. Sometimes I think that if it were me, I'd say that's in 1 more percent, so that way you could get the work done by 2 p.m. As long as you stay under budget. Okay, well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the time. I support this initiative moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually changed my mind on my second motion, but I'm going to say this, that I would be willing to make an amendment, and instead of the 20 full-time, I would like to amend it to possibly 10, half of the amount of employees that you would like to add to this budget, the CIP. So that would be my amendment. I would agree. Right now, it would be no second. And
okay. Who?
Yeah, because I second.
And you second.
And I second, so I'm removing my second.
Okay.
Nobody amended.
Councilman Barrera made a motion.
And I had seconded, but I'm removing my second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second, and then we have an amendment.
Yes, now I'd like to add the amendment.
Okay, well, let me get Ms. Vaughn in.
Okay. Hey, I get it, you need employees. My concern is adding to government. We just continue to add and add and add, and we've got a lot of employees here. realistically, over the years, the bonds have taken forever to get done. And I know it's happened where they've moved, but you only have so many contractors, so many people that can even come in here and do that. So I am just really having a hard time with this one because I don't want you not to have your employees, but yet I know we are facing a budget deficit. And that scares me for this year when we start talking budget. Even though it is in the bond, I get that. I actually like the idea of maybe doing half. I do.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn.
Mayor, can I just add?
Yes.
So just for the council's awareness, that Jeff worked on this with his team to assess what's the right number of positions. And so that's his best professional recommendation. And so if we do something less, then there would be an impact. It could be less inspection, less quality work being delivered by the contractors, slower work delivery. Jeff probably, if he could here today, or we could bring it back, but we should do a side-by-side comparison of the private staff augmentation, like an AGCM, compared to city staff. There are differences. There's differences in control of consistency. Employees working for AGCM don't work with us, don't work for us, so there's not they don't have the same team concept that we might have. They might not be at the same staff briefing where we're all discussing what our overall teammate goals are. And it was more expensive in the past, and now it's maybe about consistent. But I just want to caution the council that anything less than the 20, Jeff probably started with a much higher number to begin with. It does have an impact, and it's not that the private sector is going to magically fill that gap. I would submit that there will be less production, less quality in the delivery, and we just need to state those facts so we know, so that if we see projects that aren't coming along well in the near future, if we don't like how clean a job site is, if we're getting a lot of calls from small businesses who say there's no signs to my business, if we're getting calls from constituents saying I can't drive down this road, the signage is bad, the work site's messy, that's going to be the result of we don't have enough staff to monitor it. That's just it. It's a business. It's just an impact of doing the business. These funds are budgeted for construction and project oversight. And so we know there's going to be a budget shortfall coming up, but these bonds are issued, all the revenue bonds and cash funding as well is there in the CIP. And so where the shortfall is in the general fund with property tax and sales tax. So just want to put that in front of the council because you'll get the calls. I've worked with Councilman Cantu recently on one of our projects, and there can be a lot of calls if we're not staffed appropriately. And while we rely on the private sector, and they're good partners of ours, they don't always do A+ work. It depends on who's on that team. So just want to share that for the record.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Councilman Roy.
So Peter, kind of on the same lines, we still have contract left, right? With the, you said we currently use contracted labor, and you still have a relationship, and you still have some
contract capacity.
Yes, with them now. I think that I would be in favor of tabling this until you can come back and you can share a little bit more specific information about, excuse me, how much contracted labor that you have left. Maybe a little overview in terms of your success, because according to the city manager, if we've been using this contract labor, and it sounds like, because this is the first I've heard of it, that there might have been an issue with contract, with some of our subcontractors, if you want to call them that, then let's take a look at that, because I really do think that, if you were to do a direct hire on, let's just say hypothetically 10 positions, and then increased your contract labor, if you're getting the quality, then that gives you the flexibility, and you won't suffer in terms of not being able to continue with your jobs. But it will make it so that if there's a change, that you can adapt to that change faster. And I really do think that's a win-win. Because the other thing is that you say you can do it in 2 months, and I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, that's tough to be able to hire the number of people to staff up in that amount of time. So, I mean, if we want to take a look at this again, I think it's well worth the fact, because I think you have a lot of council members that still have questions, but that we table this and get some additional information on where you're at with that type of staffing.
Well, if I had my druthers, if I could choose, I'd rather pass it at 10 than table it.
Okay, Councilman, no, Councilman Barrera.
Elaborate on that, because here I was gonna say, obviously you have council members with a lot of questions, and I don't know how long we would table it. I think there is confusion that of general fund dollars and then I think there's also confidence that the council needs to have that you would adjust accordingly. So I think those are the challenges that you're facing. Is number one, there's a misunderstanding about how the calculation is determined for the amount of people that you need. I think number two, there's a confusion about, you know, where the funds are coming from and what have you. And I was a big supporter of AGCM, obviously. I was a big supporter of them. And at that time we had a backlog, and so we needed to address it very quickly, of which now I think we're receiving a happy medium. So, I mean, I'm ready to approve it right now, but if you don't have the support and you're backing off at 10, I'm gonna leave that up to you and your professional opinion. Where you want me to go? Where do you want me to go?
Right. I don't, Jeff, I don't support that 10 move, because it's just, we're going to be in a position where the phone calls will come in the months ahead. Okay. I would recommend tabling it. Let us get more information. Let us do a side-by-side comparison of when we contract out, what do we get? And when we use in-house forces, what do we get? We also need to show the capital budget. I don't think we showed it here, but it's not going down. It's continuing to go up. And maybe we haven't demonstrated that here this morning. So recall that just last fall, 2 1/8-cent sales tax propositions were approved by the voters. That infuses millions into our capital budget that's not even in there right now for drainage and flood control work, for roads, and for the American Bank Center. So who's going to oversee all that, right? And so we have just one of 9 replacement fire stations is going to ribbon cut in a few weeks. So our 10-year CIP that Councilman Hernandez is a big fan of, that's not going down, that's going up. And we can delay construction work, we can postpone it, and then we can get into things like consent decrees. So the recommendation that we have in our 10-year CIP is continued investment in basic infrastructure. We're talking roads and drainage and flood control and water and wastewater, and that's not going down. So plus we have many departments, and if we had to reduce his department, there's a pretty good chance we're not laying anybody off. We can transfer them to another department that has this type of work, like aviation, parks and recreation, water, wastewater, airport. I mentioned that one. Gas is another one. So it's not as if we're going to hire them and then we're going to have to fire them tomorrow. We can transfer them to that next department. But I would support Councilman Roy's recommendation. It doesn't seem like the council has all the information, and we can bring back some comparative analysis in the next week or the week after.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think, you know, that's the thing. There just has to be a clear understanding. And then, you know, one of the things, I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm picking on Councilmember Vaughn and Councilmember Scott, but we've been able to accelerate those projects. Example, I think you were on here when Councilmember Leal came up with the initiative for heirs. Well, yeah. Okay, anyway, so, but that was the thing. It was a project, I think it was initiated in It was on Bond 12. Yeah, Bond 12, and we completed it in 2019, you know? And so I think that's the challenge that we have, is that we want to get those projects. I mean, Airport Road was an initiative that long before that, and then by the time we finally, I mean, we'll be cutting it cutting that ribbon pretty soon. So I think that's the thing that we just need to be conscientious of. I agree. If we have the funds of it, it's all a component of the capital budget, and it allows us to expedite it as quickly as possible. And that's one of the things that I have to commend you, Peter, that you were able to do when we brought you on board. So I would agree with tabling it right now, simply so that way we can understand. If the council decides to vote down at that time and go to 10, okay, that's fine. They have a better understanding. So I'm with you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Paxson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm an information person. I think bringing it back when we have more information on in-house versus contractual assistance would benefit all. I would hesitate to say that the comments made today stem from a lack of understanding between bond and general fund funding dollars. I'm looking at your 25 CIP summary here. To the comment that was made that streets, water, pipelines, those are the things that we're going to continue to see grow. With the exception of the airport being the first item listed on here, which I imagine these are in alphabetical order, economic development, 36 projects, parks and recreation, 45 projects, public facilities, 19 projects, public health and safety, 18 projects. Then we get down to streets, gas, stormwater, wastewater, and water. Streets is 44 projects. I'm not saying these are bad projects. I'm saying that with the 9 people sitting here that were elected, there's several voices echoing that we don't think that this budget may continue to stay in this track. Now, I'm not saying anybody up here wants to reduce the number of street or pipeline projects that we're working on. I think most of us probably campaigned on that. But I think, to our city manager's comment, there is still some areas for changes. And so evaluating those at a later date could be beneficial. But I don't think a blanket statement that we're going to continue this track arbitrarily without these 9 voices being able to look at those and evaluate them is a fair statement. And so that's why I think we're all kind of having a difficult time digesting this. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilwoman, so if we look at the dollars, there's $700 million in water, wastewater, and $79 million in streets, and parks has $71 million. But what I'm referring to is the actual city council approved capital budget. It's not my budget. I made recommendations, and ultimately city council has to approve it. So we have a 1-year capital budget, a 3-year approved plan by the city council, again, the 9 people's budget. And then we have a 7-year long-range plan that is also approved by the city council. And that's what we need to show you, because that's the council's 10-year plan, not Peter Zanoni's. So we'll show you that as well. And that plan has basic infrastructure continuing. It has more water, more wastewater, more fire stations, more improvements in police, streets, and so on. So it's a 10-year program. It's a big part of our budget process. In fact, it's the biggest part of the budget, the CIP. But you'll see in this budget development process, the council has a lot of work to do to decide just what you said. Do we want the trend to continue in this way? Do we want to have less infrastructure development? Do we want to fund less fire or more police and so on? So it's a 10-year plan approved by city council as part of our budget process.
Okay. Thank you. Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff, how long have you been doing this job?
10 years.
Okay. And that is your sole purpose, is to calculate how much you need and, what you're willing to be able to work with. And I heard you when you said, I would accept less. And I thought, half would be a compromise. I know that I hear that there's more information that is being requested. But honestly, one of the things that really, when I was listening to my colleagues, is on page 5. Can we pull that up? The mid-year adjustment drivers. It says providing support to Inner Harbor Water Treatment Campus. So when you list these drivers, if we're going to vote it down, if we're not going to go with the half the 10, because really what I was trying to say is that I trust you. I trust your judgment. I feel that you've been doing, a job and you know what you can work with. And sometimes, like you say, okay, I can work with this, right? But the other option would be, wouldn't you be able to also come back if there's, because it's CIP money. So it's not like it has to go through budget. You would just come back and say, you know what? I'm looking at this and it looks like, these projects, because we know what the main driver for, I know the residents is our streets. We want to make sure that our streets and our water, are working. So would you be able to come back to us and say, you know what, council, it looks like, we're not going to make it with 10. Let's say if we agreed with the 10, would you be able to come back and say, you know what, we're going to need more?
Well, what we could do, if we were to vote to do that, we would probably, through the budgeting process, look at the question of, do we need more than that? Mm-hmm. And so that would be our response to that. So there's a higher likelihood that we're going to try and ask for something in the upcoming budget cycle to adjust if the trends keep going how they're going. And what we're doing, we're reacting to what's happening. I mean, these are projects that were approved by council in the CIP and went through the process of awarding either design contracts and construction contracts, and that's what we're managing. These are active contracts that are underway, that are in execution, is what's driving this request. And we awarded over $500 million of new contracts last year, and that was a record for this department by far. And we're expecting to actually exceed that this year.
Okay, and what will happen if we delay it? Because, it's I don't know when you'll be able to come back, for the agenda. If we table it now.
We'll probably,
is it?
Excuse me, Councilman, we'll probably bring it back not next week, but the following week. The agenda's already posted for next week.
Okay, so
2 weeks from now.
Okay, so how is this? Is going to be crucial that would you rather have 10 now and then?
No.
Or,
2 weeks is not going to make a
okay.
difference.
All right, then, okay, thank you.
Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to see, some comparisons here. Obviously, I'm a fan of outsourcing some of this stuff because it, supplements you without having to increase your staff. With that, I'll make a motion to postpone until the April 15th meeting.
I'm going to ask, did you speak with all the council? Did you meet with all the council? Was there briefings for this?
There was, yeah, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes.
Did you reach out to everyone?
Yes.
Did you get a response from
I believe we actually
everyone?
spoke with everyone, yes, ma'am.
Did you get a response and sit down with everyone?
Yes.
Everybody? Ms. Gumpels just said no. All right, so here's my point. We've spent 40 minutes on this item. You're the professional. It doesn't matter what council prior to this one, it's the way it works, right? Every 2 years, it changes, but there's still a plan already in place by the council, whoever the council was. You're telling us you're the professional. You're not asking to hire people. That's number one. We got to keep that clear. This is not impacting the budget. The monies are already there. You're saying to us, you, the council, maybe not these specific people, but a council created a plan, voted on a plan to the tune of $500 million last year in new contracts. You're saying to us, in order for me and my department to keep our end of the deal, I need to do this. I need to bring on additional help.
Yes, ma'am.
I say that real strong, Edmonds. Yes, ma'am.
I need additional help to help manage the contracts that council has awarded.
And my point here is, this ensures savings on our future projects. It maximizes tax dollars or taxpayer dollars. And it gives us the ability to deliver. Because the days of Bond 2012 being completed in 2019 are behind us. But with that comes hiring additional staff. I mean, a lot of us either are or we're business owners. We know what that looks like and what that means. And we know, and you've explained it, if you're not going to hire them all overnight. So anyway, I'm gonna stop. I'm ready to support your 20 because I want infrastructure to be completed. I want you to be able to come and deliver and not some council to sit up here and drill you over why it's taking so long. So thank you for your time. Where are we? Oh, I'm sorry. We still have, I'm sorry, we have a couple of council comments, but we have an amendment, is that correct? Or wait, you just...
It's a motion to postpone until April 15th.
Wasn't there an amendment before?
It didn't receive a second.
Okay, and then you did the motion to postpone. Councilman Roy.
You know, Mayor, first of all, I understand your point where you're saying that, did we receive a briefing? And we got a briefing. And I sat down and I talked with Jeff on the phone, right?
Yes, sir.
But the bottom line is that whether we have a 10-year plan or not, no one, at least myself, I'm not saying that I don't support the projects, that I don't support staffing 20. What I'm saying is the path to being able to get to the 20 is something where we're looking at the fact that maybe we use part of that as regular staff and we use the other part from a staffing agency, which we already have in place and which we already use. And so nobody is saying that we don't support this or we don't think it's a great idea or we know more than Jeff or that Jeff's the expert, but I am a council member here. And part of being a council member is I have a financial and a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the money that is spent in this city is spent wisely. And that's what I'm going to do. Sure. And if I've got to ask another question, if I have to postpone something for a week, I'm going to do that. Because if I can't do my job, then I need to walk away.
Okay.
And I'm just telling you that. But that doesn't sit well with me. And there's a lot of things that usually do sit well. I sit here and I listen. But to sit there and make it sound like, okay, we had the opportunity to engage with Jeff. Yes, we did. But the thing is that as questions come up, you start thinking about additional things up here from this dais. And I just want to do a good job. And if we have to postpone it to get a better understanding, that's all I'm asking for.
That's fine, Councilman.
All right.
And by the way, I'm sorry, that was your...
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to give you that because let me turn you on. Hold on. Hold on. I gave you 3 on accident.
Ready?
Carolyn, I'm going to give you that one.
I hardly ever speak. And when I do, I don't use my 2 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it is. I agree with you completely. And Mayor, and anybody up here, you're not going to guilt me into voting something and chastise us. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to vote how I want to vote. I'm going to ask as many questions as I need to. I support you. I want you to get the job done. But 2 weeks to me is not going to make any difference for us to make sure, and you may get the 20 people. So 2 weeks is not going to matter. But don't chastise us up here. We have a right to ask questions. Thank you.
And absolutely. Absolutely. But I asked the question, did you meet with everyone? Don't take that offensively, Councilwoman, because I don't want you to take that offensively. That wasn't the way it was meant. Maybe I should clarify. Staff takes a lot of time to try to meet with council members and thoroughly explain. And to me, I like that because we've been in briefings together. It makes a huge difference. And so I know that could be done by phone, that could be done in person, but giving them that time, and if they did or didn't, I was just asking the question. I don't know who did or didn't, and sometimes it's difficult to do, but nonetheless, it's important to do so. And that was my point, because some of these things are complex. And, they're giving us their time, at least an hour, to be able to do this in an entire week. So moving forward, everybody has, that is not what I meant. You ask all the questions you want, but please take advantage of the time that is offered to you prior to council meetings. So we have a motion to table. Did we have a second? Second. We have a second. I'm sorry, yeah, to postpone for 2 weeks. Second. We have a motion and a second. Please submit your vote.
Wait, what is it? Postpone, right?
It's a motion to postpone for 2 weeks, which is April 15th.
Any addition? Okay. Okay, so the motion carries.
Thanks for the time and the consideration, and I apologize for the timing. I know it's not the best time to bring this item forward, and I appreciate the city manager letting me do this, and we'll get to work answering some of these questions and getting you the additional information, and see you back here in 2 weeks.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Edmonds. Let's see, we have briefings. We have 2 briefings. We have a streets rapid pavement program, and is Ryan on, or is he here today? Or do you know?
I'm not sure, Mayor. The city manager stepped out. Let me see if I can find out.
Okay, let's get the streets briefing. Yeah, it is a briefing update on the progress of residential streets as part of the rapid pavement program. Mr. De La Garza.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. Ernesto De La Garza, Director of Public Works. Today, I would like to present to the Council with an update on the rapid pavement program for this fiscal year. This update is for all data collected as of February 28. All right, if you recall, the RPP, formerly was the IMP before, Infrastructure Management Plan, was reprioritized and approved by Council in June of 2023. This slide shows a summary of remaining residential streets as part of the RSRP legacy reconstruction projects and RPP contractual projects. So as part of that reprioritization, a total of 20 projects were selected to remain as reconstruction projects. To date, out of the original 20 legacy projects, 15 are complete, and 5 projects will be completed by summer of 2025. The RPP pavement-only approach was approved by Council in June of 2023, June 13. Last year, City Council approved 5 contracts for $6 million each. The awarded contracts went to Anderson and Columbia, Bay, and Tex-Mex. These contracts were 1 year with 1 year extensions, or 1 year extension. For year 1, all fiscal year 2024 RPP planned streets were paved by the end of the fiscal year 24. In addition to the 5 contracts, Public Works has 2 of 4 in-house paving teams working on the RPP program, in addition to our contractors. Today, our contractors and in-house public work teams are progressing with the RPP fiscal year 2025 planned streets. For fiscal year 2025 planned streets, in-house is approximately 32% complete, and our contractors are 35% complete. For our in-house RPP team, a total of 33 projects were planned. To date, 10 projects are complete, and 23 projects will be completed by September of 25. And then for our contractors team, a total of 107 projects were planned. To date, 35 projects are complete, and 72 projects are planned to be completed by September of 25. These are just some pictures of our contractors' work. For District 1, Moonlight Drive from Rand Morgan to IH-37, this is work done by Anderson and Columbia. For District 2, this is Belvin Street from South Staples to Naples Street. This work is done by Bay. District 3, Greenview Drive from Green Tree Drive to the dead end. This work is also done by Bay. District 4, Tobin Drive from Holly Road to Theta Drive. This is done by our in-house team, Public Works. And then District 5, Lemond Drive from Vatter to, I guess that's Bourget. Tex-Mex did this work. On our timeline, we have a busy summer plan for the rapid pavement program. This is a high-level timeline of what to expect this summer. Even though we're targeting to have our RPP fiscal year 25 streets done by the end of September, we're really pushing our contractors to be completed by the end of May. Also, we have a goal to have our in-house teams done with RPP 2025 by July. On November 5th, 2024, the voters voted for the Bond 24 Residential Streets Program. We expect to start construction on Bond 24 residential streets in June of 2025 to be completed by February of 26. Finally, we are currently working on our budgets for fiscal year 2026. We plan to start work on the fiscal year 2026 RPP in October of 2025. Also, after finishing contract documents and going to council, we plan to start our contractor fiscal year 2026 RPP work on March of 2026. And this concludes my presentation. I stand by for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. De La Garza. Councilman Hernandez.
Thank you, Ernie. Thank you. I don't think you're getting full credit for everything that you've done here. I'm looking at the report, and there's a lot of streets that I know that you did, but are missing from your report.
Right.
Right, like so, and this, I'm assuming this is the legacy information that was put on this report, and you said what you completed from that. But for example, you know, the two streets that in District 5 on page 8 of your report, it says Constance and Van Ern were done. Well, I also know you did several other streets, like Maggery, you know, Thundersea, several streets in that area because you do that neighborhood approach.
Right.
But you're not getting credit for it here.
Right, yeah, you're speaking to our unplanned portfolio. So here's, I don't know if you can pull up the PowerPoint. Here's my data. So on the planned contractual work, that's what I'm committing to per fiscal year as per the plan. So what we budget, if we have a set budget and the bids come in at right that amount, you're only going to get the planned work because that's all we can afford. But when the bids come in lower, that gives us the latitude to go and, I guess, capture what we call orphans in the clusters. So sometimes a cul-de-sac will get left out, or maybe a connection street between two collectors will get left out. And so in your situation, that's what we did.
Okay, and then also you did a lot of ADA work in terms of the sidewalk, the intersections at the sidewalks, right, where you have you made improvements there as well. You're actually doing a lot more than what you're just stating here, and I want to give you credit for that.
Yes, sir.
For that work, and you know, hopefully you can continue to do that. You know, like I said, I think you know you're not taking full credit for the stuff that you're doing, and even though that's, you know, some of it's unplanned, you guys are doing some great work. As a matter of fact, I think you should be managing all the street projects, right? I know engineering is asking for more people, but I think, you know, you're held responsible for it. It's like, for example, with like Willowick. It's on your report because it's part of the legacy reconstruction program, but you didn't manage that, right? Right. It was engineering.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, you're ultimately responsible for streets. So I think maybe we should take a look at that and possibly, you know, have you be the final say on all street projects. But that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And thank you for the work that you've done, Ernie. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, sir.
Councilman Scott.
Hey, I think you're doing a good job. I think you're doing a great job. I don't completely know because I'm not sure how the system works. And I'm a little embarrassed because I've tried to figure it out. So my request is, Michael or Peter, would you set up some time for me to spend with you and your team in the next couple weeks to get to help I don't need to ask a bunch of questions. What I need to do is come see you, right? Do some homework to help me understand, and then I promise you I'll be a better council member when you present in the future. It's just new to me, and it's different than what I remember in the past. And so please help educate me. And streets are important to me, but I think our time has been full of water conversations, and so I think maybe now's the time for me to spend some time. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, my approach is very different from Councilman Hernandez. I like, you know, sometimes how he thinks, and I'm so glad that he is giving you credit. But you know how I gauge how the street department or your department is doing? by the calls and by what I see. So I want to ask you, is our system working? Is the 311 system working? Because there's less, I think, calls that are coming up to my level, right? So what usually happens is that, and that's what we try to do, I try to educate the public and say, first, try to call 311, try to get your street, see what the problem is with the potholes, or, why is my street not on the plan, on the RPP plan? So, but the other is, then they decide to call me, right? So between Patricia and I think we have a good team, because and then we automatically call you, and then there's this actual site visit. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, is that a good system that, that is working? I mean, it seems like it is, because I know we're not getting as many calls, so.
Right. I believe the call volume has gone down ever since we initiated what council allowed us to do with we called it the skin patch. So that covered a lot of the streets that were getting a lot of pothole calls in. So that helped reduce that call volume. And then a lot of them are also, sidewalks and stuff like that we really don't have a set program for, because we went to the pavement only. But, from what I'm tracking from Public Works side, because we receive the calls, we make a work order, our numbers are not as high as they used to be when I first came to Public Works in 22. And so our backlog on potholes, kind of averages about 40 outstanding locations to go to. Of course, during the rain, you get up in the hundreds, but it hasn't been anything like what I first saw when I first got here. So I would say it is working. It's not a perfect system, and I do encourage, the calls to come from you all as well. We try to be responsive. That's my mandate to my team, is to respond fast, if at all possible.
Right.
I know some stuff does get, caught in some details, but most of the time I like for our team to respond quickly, even if we have to bring in on-call at night.
Okay, and we really do appreciate that, and I think the community really is seeing the progress. But you're right about the other issues regarding the sidewalks and the curbs and stuff. So, but again, I think again you can see that your approach is working. It's not perfect. It's not. We know that, but I can say that it's a lot less calls, and hopefully being able to get to more streets is phenomenal. So just thank you so much, and keep it up, and to your whole crew, really, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Paxson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to agree with her, Councilmember Hernandez and Sylvia Campos, Councilwoman Campos. I think that there's a lot of work you guys are doing that's incredibly successful and helpful. And I'd love to see some of the conversations that I have. In fact, a lot of the conversations that I have with the public is curiosity. Like, how is this possible? How are we getting so much done? What's different this time from what we were doing previously? Back in January, I had my one-on-one with the city manager, and he was kind of explaining that one of the things the department has developed and implemented recently in the last couple of years is a difference of base that you guys are laying down in a lot of these street cases. And I think that, to what Councilmember Hernandez was saying, I think that's very noteworthy. I think I would love to see your department have, a little bit of a moment with our PIO type team and say, let's explain why this is working so well and what's going on. Because one, it gives credit where credit's due, but it also opens that understanding publicly, because streets have been a tremendous need for the community and outcry. We hear that all the time, streets, but you're making a lot of progress, and things have really improved. And so I would say perhaps we can look at something like that and expound on why this is so successful and what we're doing. Another thing that I talked about with our CM was, and thank you for this chart showing the comparison of in-house and contracted projects completed and in progress, excuse me. Talked about potentially looking down the line and it growing what you're able to do in-house, because I know that's a lot of cost savings. I know we sometimes hit that hurdle where we've got funding for projects, but our shortcoming is how many can we accommodate at one time? And you guys are doing such a good job with our internal crews. I'd love to continue that dialogue and look at, over the next 5 years, what a goal could be for that. So thank you for everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Roy.
Ernie, I'm trying to remember when we did the community reach out, when we were rolling out the new program, and it was at the Owen Stevens Library was one of them. And I remember talking to the community, and everybody kind of, you had some people that were skeptical, and you had some other people that just kind of wanted to understand, okay, how are you going to achieve this? And of course, there was another whole group that just wanted to see if their street was on the list. But, I want to tell you something that I am very proud of you and your department and what you guys have done. I will tell you that one of the things that I see, and I hear most of the times when I'm at the store, and whether in Calallen or Annaville or wherever I'm at, is the people talk about the streets and the things that, and they talk specifically about Hearn and all the other areas and some of the drainage things that you guys have done in the Calallen area. And I know that we've had a tremendous impact. I am so proud of you guys. You guys have done a fantastic job. And I do believe, like Councilmember Hernandez said, you don't give your guys enough credit sometimes. But you guys are doing a great job, and it's phenomenal. And the fact that the dream of whoever came up with the way to do this different is now a reality, and it's working. Hats off to you guys. I appreciate it, and just don't stop what you're doing. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Councilwoman Campos.
Okay, Ernie, I just wanted to ask you one more thing. Are you going to be able to keep up with the pace? Because I know you were still working off the $12 million, the $5.38 fee that was that we were paying, that residents were paying. Mm-hmm. Are we still going to be able to keep up with that pace? Because that's going to be the big difference, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's the plan. That's the plan, to keep up with the pace.
Okay.
It's on me to keep up with the pace. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilwoman, were you talking about the funding level? Yeah, we're not going to be able to keep up with the pace. Sorry.
I thought you were talking about the residential program completion.
Yeah, no, yeah, we'll go over it this summer, but right now, this plan that we have for the current year is only made possible by redirecting monies from capital projects like City Hall parking lot, several park projects. I recommended in the budget, and the council approved those, to not do those and instead keep street funding level. That was one-time money, though. So going into the next budget, 2026, I don't know what number, but I know at least $6 million is at question. I don't know if we can sustain that. We don't have the streets user fee, as you mentioned, and so that brought in about $12 million a year. That doesn't come in anymore. However, we do have the $30 million that was in the bond program for residential streets, and Ernie mentioned that in his presentation. So that will help to maybe offset a little bit, but we're trying to keep it level. I think without that bond program money, it would be tough, but that'll help a little bit. And so that's some of the conversation we have to have in the summertime. It was when I started 6 years ago, it was priority number one for the city was streets, and it still is. Mm-hmm. But we do have to be aware and mindful of the finances of how we funded it and what doesn't exist anymore. So we'll go over that actually we're going to have a financial forecast presentation in the coming weeks, and then we're going to have a goal setting session for the budget, and then we'll begin to talk about the budget. But just want to give that council information so we have it. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. I thought you were talking about the schedule.
Yeah. Ernie, thank you. I think that's all the comments. We appreciate it. I think this program obviously has been very successful. And correct me if I'm wrong, we're moving 5 times faster?
We're still on track, yes, ma'am.
5 times faster.
And if I may, I have Manuel Hernandez and Connie Garcia. They're the magic behind the scenes. Yeah. I'm just kind of in charge, so.
Kind of.
Yeah, they do all the planning. Connie's design team does all the design work, and then Manuel's, he's instrumental in our in-house work as well.
We appreciate you. We appreciate your entire team, and as has been mentioned by everybody, streets is number one. It continues to be, and it will continue to be. We're gonna have to find a way, to continue. But I think this program has really allowed us to move forward by leaps and bounds. So thank you for bringing that forth, and thank y'all for being here. Okay, our last item, and I think it's a quick briefing by Ryan Skrabarczyk, our Director of Intergovernmental Relations. It's just a briefing on the 89th, not just, but a briefing on the 89th Texas legislative session. Ryan, are you online?
Yes, ma'am. Can y'all hear me? I don't know if you can see me, but can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. There's a slide oh, perfect. Thank you. There's a slide presentation. So we'll start on slide 1. And I know I'm here at the end of a meeting, so we'll go through these slides briefly, but there's quite a bit of activity at the legislative session. This is an updated slide, total bill count number for the session, and why that changed after the filing deadline is there is an ability for legislators to file local bills. And so it's grown slightly, but the number of pieces of legislation that cities, the Texas Municipal League, the City of Corpus Christi are tracking is a very significant amount of legislation, probably not humanly possible to read and comprehend all of that information. So luckily, we're over halfway through the process of the legislative session. This week is the first House calendar on the House floor where bills coming out of committee are scheduled for full votes in the House, which is just indicative of kind of the process post the 60-day emergency deadline. It's really going to pick up speed. So the number of bills that are being heard in committee are going to grow each week. And so I just want to keep council cognizant of that. If you can go to slide 3, please. So the Senate has advanced Senate Bill 1, which is the budget. Some of the key highlight items there that are generally available about the budget. It's important to note that while that passed out of the Senate, it was unanimous, which is frankly pretty typical of the Senate to do. It's already headed over to the House, and the House will schedule a budget night probably in the coming week and a half, where that bill will head to the floor, and the House version and the Senate version almost never match. And so the House budget will be somewhat different, as they'll probably have a lengthy session of floor amendments that are added or considered at least to the House budget. And when they go into conference is when the real meat of the budget work happens, where the conferees from the House side and the Senate side over the various articles hash out the differences and anything else that was placed in Article 11 in the budget. And so there are a number of budget writers that have been introduced that might be potentially helpful to the City of Corpus Christi, including multiple public entities in town receiving funding, from the State Aquarium to the Ritz Theater to other things. A lot of that ends up in what is called Article 11 of the budget, which is, for lack of a better word, a graveyard of ideas that are in the budget, but they're not funded. In that, importantly, our House delegation with Representative Denise Villalobos introduced a rider for $50 million for the City of Corpus Christi's emergency water supply projects. That was unfortunately put in Article 11, which means it's unfunded. There was a lot of requests from water systems across the state. All of those received a similar treatment. So not funded at present, but we'll have to see what the total amount of water funding that comes out of the session will be. There's still a big push to keep the corpus of the $2.5 billion and additional $1 billion constitutionally dedicated funding whole. And what I mean by that is not have it parsed out for particular projects based off of those projects identified by the legislature. So we'll see, once that bill moves out of the House, what kind of opportunities there might exist for, riders to come out of Article 11 and back into the budget. But as you can see from that list, the $2.5 billion and the $1 billion constitutionally dedicated funding are still major priorities of both chambers. On the next slide, on land use mandates and preemption, There were a number of bills that the city has been engaged on, particularly related around preemption of municipal authority over density requirements. And I've talked about this a lot with the city council. I've raised this in our pre-session briefings. We have continued to raise issues about preempting local control around density and development processes. In particular, obviously, because of the lack of local control there or community input into how that property might be developed and that density managed. There's obviously the infrastructure impact that density-driven public policy drives, whether it's streets, water, wastewater, and all of those things. A little bit unique to Corpus Christi is obviously, though, the proximity to military installations. And so we have repeatedly raised the issue of allowing, or rather preempting, the city from abiding by the APZ or accident potential zone adjacent to the Naval Air Station Corpus Christi and the auxiliary airfields. We want to make sure that that can be protected, so that way we don't have encroachment on the Navy military missions there. We did not see any substantive amendments made to the bills that would have addressed these issues as they came out of the Senate. Unfortunately, not totally expected, or unexpected rather, but we are working with the House, including the House chairman, that a lot of these pieces of legislation go through his committee. Chairman Todd Hunter is actually on that committee, as well as the calendars committee, where these bills will go through afterwards. So there's opportunity for us to hopefully make some substantive positive amendments that would address these issues in the House. You can go to the next slide. Senate Bill 840 was one of the pieces of legislation that originally did not include the city of Corpus Christi. We were not included in the legal bracket. However, when the bill was substituted as it was voted out of committee, the bracket changed, and so the city of Corpus Christi is included. And so this is probably one of the more extensive bills incentivizing development, allowing the conversion, or not allowing, that wouldn't be the right word, but preempting municipal authority over certain development processes when it comes to converting commercial property into mixed-use residential or multifamily properties. And again, driving around the idea of some in the legislature that density is the largest contributor to housing unaffordability. It does create, in that second bullet or sub-bullet, as you can see, it does create statewide mandates on how restrictive communities can be on density, height, and setbacks. And so, that can have a practical impact, not only, as I just said, on proximity of density and military installations, but just in general over the quality of life of the community. And it goes a little bit further in saying that the city can't require traffic impact analysis or require parking spaces. And so, we're hopeful that the House will take a really hard look at how that will impact the ability for communities to plan appropriately. The council has consistently opposed erosions of local control, but I think these bills go a step beyond that in terms of really removing certain provisions and decisions that council could make in determining certain development. You can go to page 6. Continuing on land use, House Bill 23 by Representative Harris, which does away with the shot clock consideration in the sense that it would allow a developer to immediately determine for third-party review of all planning, platting, inspections, and permits for building. We have seen several favorable amendments added to this that would essentially give the city a view into the documents that are being produced. It also would allow for it places liability on the engineer if it is the engineer in that step of the development process that has stamped and sealed those. It would require them to be liable for the decisions made. And we did discuss and raise some concerns around floodplain management with Chairman Harris's office. And so the bill was voted out of committee, but they have committed to work with us. And why that's a concern is obviously the ability to protect or plan and appropriately develop floodplain management impacts our compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program, which is an important cost factor in affordability for residents in the city of Corpus Christi. And so Chairman Harris's willingness to work with us is a positive first step. I previously reported on House Bill 24 by Representative Orr. It does change that threshold for protest of zoning up to 60%. And in those instances where it was initiated by the developer, require a 3/4 vote of council. You can go to page 7 or slide 7. There's been some discussion about House Bill 2188 by Senator Adam Hinojosa. And so I just wanted to address the provisions in that bill. So currently, state law has since 2013 allowed a specific county that borders the Gulf of Mexico and contains a launch site with FAA approval to temporarily close beach access in reasonable proximity of a launch to protect public health and safety. This is Cameron County, which that this is applied to. The bill doesn't expand that authority, but rather transfers the weekday closures to a municipality in that county. And there's several conditional brackets on that. So it would only apply to a municipality less than 150,000. It would have to be located in the county previously referenced, and that city has to contain a spaceport. And so it does additionally add that closures would require a 48-hour notice under statute, was not previously there. And so just wanted the council to be aware of the brackets that are in that piece of legislation. You can go to the next slide on page 8. There were several bills that were considered, one of which we supported on DAG that was actually a point in the process notified the committee where the governor's office has to call in staff to score DAG applications in concert with the Texas Military Preparedness Commission also scoring those. And it really was an unnecessary step. And so in order to streamline that application process, and frankly, it helps the governor's office be a little bit more efficient, the executive director of the TMPC, Keith Graff, testified to the committee that it can sometimes become a burden where the governor's staff has to be rounded up. It doesn't say who, and they have to commit significant time when they could have an application that's 50 pages long and numerous applications to scoring those, when in reality, it's the commission that ultimately scores and makes the decisions. So we supported that. There was House Bill 561 by Representative Lopez that we registered in opposition of. It was a bill that was opposed and has been opposed for a number of years by the Texas Mayors for Military Communities, of which Corpus Christi is a member. And it would have allowed, as written and introduced at least, a utility to apply for a grant or DAG grant without the coordination with City Council. Having spoken to the two utilities that were pushing this, I think we're coming at the idea of they just want to be able to manage the grant as a standalone utility if that's how they operate. SAW as being a preeminent example of that. And so they have agreed, or at least are looking at adding an amendment where they get a resolution of support from City Council to make sure that DAG applications are always coordinated through that instrument. You can go to page 9. On intergovernmental affairs, House Bill 1585 is in line with our position on what are referred to as traveling housing finance corporations. This is where entities from outside Corpus Christi have come in and purchased properties off of the tax rolls. It's happened in our jurisdiction in excess of $200 million in value off the tax roll. And so there's a lot of support in the legislature to address this. We had previously supported House Bill 21, which addresses the same issue, although it was a broader bill. And that bill has not passed out of committee. House Bill 1585 has. And so in supporting that, in order to try to address that and ensure that council has the ability to approve these deals as they go forward, we're obviously hoping that bill works its way through the process, and we'll continue to support it along the way. House Bill 1080 would allow for alternative posting of required notices, and we do think there will likely be a cost savings there. It would require a hearing to determine that the circulation of whatever alternative media the political subdivision is going to use is more substantial than the paper circulation. And so we'll see how that goes, but because it would allow us to potentially save some revenue, that was a bill that many of the cities supported. On page 10, we'll look at some of the first responder legislation we've been involved in line with our support of first responder or emergency services related grants. We supported the House Bill 2217 by Representative Trey Wharton. We have also supported both the Advisory Committee on Mental Health for Fire Departments, not only for our first responder language in the resolution, but because our public health language about supporting and strengthening mental health awareness in the community. And then House Bill 2063 by Representative Fairley just has the state agency create a statewide database. And obviously there was support for that in the fact that having that information in the instance we needed it to fight wildfires regionally, that would be up to date and available for us to call on in mutual aid. Page number 11, in tax and economic development, we know that this is the bill that the House has considered for business personal property tax. It would be a major increase in that category as far as the exemption. It doesn't necessarily diminish city revenues, as the reduction in the tax base would thereby increase the no new revenue tax rate for local political subdivisions. And so it's what many are referring to as a hold harmless. The Senate has a version of this where the tax break for businesses on business personal property would be $25,000. So you can see how far apart the House and the Senate are on that issue. But the bill was actually on the House floor today. And so on page 12, there were several bills dealing, again, with more tax and economic development issues. House Bill 134 advanced out of committee that will change sales tax sourcing for larger companies, which is defined there in the statute, from origin to destination. We don't think that this will have a significant impact. We've checked with finance department about this as far as our sales tax sourcing, and it may end up being potentially a net benefit to Corpus Christi. So we're monitoring that one closely, as that would be a wholesale change. It was important to note that, and I think I reported on this at the last briefing, that the comptroller couldn't even put out an analysis of what the local government impact on that, because it varied so drastically between local political subdivisions. And then Senate Bill 878 by Senator Birdwell advanced out of committee, which is not unexpected, but it would put some pretty significant guardrails on Chapter 380 agreements. And so we'll have to see how far that proposal advances once it makes its way over to the House. On page 13, looking at debt instruments, House Bill 1453 was heard in committee, and as was discussed in the TML conference over the summer, there's going to be a lot of focus in the legislature on debt instruments, and so it was filed to further restrict the use of COs on certain types of public works. The filed version changed pretty dramatically from that to the committee substitute that was ultimately laid out. And so we raised concerns about the original bill, which would have banned COs for public safety facilities, animal shelters, libraries, judicial facilities, and parks. The committee substitute brought a few of those back in, including specifically public safety facilities and jails, but then eliminates airports, streets, and wharves and docks, which as a coastal community, I think would be a concern. And so we'll have to see if this bill has the support to make it out of committee. There were a lot of concerns raised about the flexibility challenges that might create on certain pieces of infrastructure. But we know that there are types of public works, particularly around arenas, hotels, and convention centers that the legislature has been trying to get at. And so I think I know that to a large extent, the other types of public works are kind of a casualty of that larger conversation. And then on the slide 14, just a reminder of where the water supply funding legislation is at currently. Senate Bill 7 has been reported out of committee by Senator Perry. It's the framework, but not the money. And House Bill 16 is actually up in Natural Resources tomorrow, as you could see on the committee posting report I sent council on Friday. There's a correction. That's actually HJR 7 by Representative Harris. That is the funding. And so that's the constitutional dedicated funding of $1 billion each year. That ultimately would have to go to the voters if approved by the legislature in November. And so that has been voted out of committee. The Senate constitutionally dedicated funding hasn't advanced out of committee yet. And so it looks like at this point it's probably going to be the Senate Bill 7 as the framework bill moving as the enabling legislation, and HJR 7 as the legislation for constitutional funding. So in the future, I'll report on just the ones that have moved, because as we get in the next few weeks, the ones that haven't are probably not going to be the vehicles for water legislation. That takes me to the last slide, just a few updates for this week as far as activities that we've been engaged in. Today, there was a bill on compensatory damages on construction contracts, which the city typically has a clause, a no damage clause in our construction contracts to protect local taxpayer dollars from unnecessary lawsuits. We raised concerns with that bill and obviously hope that it can be reformed. It was a refile from previous sessions, and so we'll have to see how far that goes. Senate Bill 22, which is the Lieutenant Governor's Film Incentive Program. We have language in our legislative agenda supporting the continuance of the Film Incentive Program, and so have supported that as the legislature looks to make a historic investment in that particular program. As I mentioned, House Bill 16, the water funding framework bill, will be up in Natural Resources tomorrow. In addition, as I sent the note to council over the weekend about TWIA legislation, tomorrow is the big TWIA hearing day in House Insurance at 8 a.m., where Chairman Hunter's bill about excess losses for TWIA will be up alongside a number of other TWIA-related bills, hopefully going to make some positive reforms about the affordability of TWIA. And then Thursday is a major day as far as land and resource management in the House side. The bill requiring tiny lots, or the allowance of tiny lots, will be up in the House. There's a bill requiring disannexation petitions for areas not receiving full municipal services. That's a bill that we filed a letter on in the Senate yesterday that could potentially have some pretty bad financial impacts for the city if that were to go through in its filed version. We've been told that that bill was going to be bracketed to Austin because that's where the issue that drove the filing of the legislation originated out of, and obviously working with the House author to ensure that that's what they do, is bracket it to Austin. And then there's several bills, including one on the preemption of city ordinances requiring parking minimums on commercial facilities, essentially saying outside of federal law the city can't require them. And so we know that for ingress and egress of emergency service vehicles, that can be a problem, as well as just quality of life if commercial facilities aren't required to have sufficient parking. And why that's important is commercial, as defined in that section of code, is actually anything other than single family. And so it could be mixed use, it could be multifamily, it could be apartment complexes, any number of other zones. And so with that, Mayor and Council, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan.
Basically, he's just been sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, right. Twiddling his thumbs. Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for that comprehensive report. Okay, so once, let's say our city decides that, one legislation is more important than another one, or, something's really I guess I don't know if it's something I need to just ask the mayor, that we draft a letter that we say we're in, like, I received a bunch of emails on the SB 2188, voting against it, or for us, for the city not to support it. Is that something we consider as a council, or how do we?
Yeah, so we go back, and I can let Brian chime in, but we do go back to our legislative agenda and see what's in that, because that's what we or collectively support.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one that is, but you might.
If I can add,
Yeah, go ahead.
Mayor, to that. Well, I was just going to say, because of the fast-moving nature of the legislature, we don't bring back individual bills for votes or support. So the council-adopted agenda from December is what governs staff and the lobby team's activities here. And so we utilize that as kind of a guidance tool where there's clear direction to get engaged. We have had just general statements of support if it's a pretty kind of blanket policy where we've had the mayor sign a letter, and I sent copies of those to council previously. If it's operational in standpoint, like the compensatory damages issue from this morning, we asked the city manager from an operation standpoint to have that letter drafted and sign that and submit it as written testimony. Specifically on the bill, Councilwoman, that you're referencing, because our language in the council adopted resolution says that we oppose legislation that would restrict public beach access on local, state, or federal property in a manner inconsistent with the provisions of our city charter and ordinances. And our city charter ordinances allow for public necessity closures, public health and safety closures. We've remained neutral on that legislation to date.
Would that be, well, for me, it doesn't sound like we should be neutral, not according to what you just read, but that's my opinion. I also wanted to see, I don't know if you've been hearing, but I just heard that the federal budget cuts are now affecting our base here, some of our employees. Can you tell us what is happening? I know this is not part of your, this report, but I'm just wondering if you have heard, that it's actually hitting, employees here. What is it that the state can do for funding? Is it possible that we can try to save some of the jobs that are on the, on the block to be cut?
That's a good question, Councilwoman. The reports out of our local military commanders have kind of been inconsistent just because the fast evolving nature of executive orders. There was if you're familiar with the fork in the road email that was sent out to federal employees allowing for basically early retirements. And then there are expected across the board cuts or reductions to all branches of the military and the federal government for that matter. And so because that's been such a fluid dynamic, we have some of the details I'd be happy to get with Preston, with our South Texas Military Task Force executive director, who could probably put something together that would better capture what we're looking at. We know we've seen some retirements due to that fork in the road email, in particular with the Army Depot. Because of the budget cuts, they're in a hiring freeze, and so that's complicated positions where they're like one-of-one positions or maybe mission critical that need to be rehired pretty quickly. They've sent those requests into the federal administration. Going back to the state doesn't really have a mechanism by which they fund FTEs in the Department of Defense, and so that's not really a match there.
Okay. Well, like I said, I just heard this last night, and I didn't know if you had already, seen some actual workers, stating to their, captains or supervisors or directors or whatever they have over there at the Army Depot, if it's already up the chain that it's actually happening, like these letters are going out, like you say, the fork in the road. So I don't know how many it's affected, but I certainly would like to have an update on that. Thank you.
I'd be happy to get that in writing to the mayor and council, and we'll work with the task force to make sure that we're respectful of the operational details of the local military installation, but provide kind of a general overview of where we expect those cuts might be happening, because some of them have happened as far as like the fork in the road email. Some of the cuts as far as the reductions in overall budgets, I think, are still ongoing.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Paxson.
Thank you, Mayor. Ryan, thank you for your presentation. I'll send an email, but if there's any way we could get that emailed to us, because it vastly doesn't match what's in our packet. And I would have loved to have a little bit of this reading prior to meeting here. My questions with the presentation is one on the Senate Bill 2188 about the beach access.
Yes, ma'am.
That has certainly garnered a lot of concern here locally. And I'm just curious, when I read the definition that you have on the presentation, it looks like we don't really have anything to worry about here. Of course, you know, I understand if it's a matter of, you know, national security or need to have access to public spaces, but the interest locally is what's that going to do to our beach access? And it doesn't look like we qualify based on this slide. Would you agree with that assessment?
I would.
So we should be in the clear regardless of the future of this proposal.
Yeah, the 2013 law doesn't apply to us, and this current law only applies to a city in that county.
Okay.
So it does.
Thank you for that. And then my next question, it's on my page 10. I'm not sure which page it's on yours. It's SB 7 and SJR 66, the water supply funding. One of the bullet points is creating an Office of Water Supply Conveyance Coordination to standardize standards and guidance of pipeline network. I know you said that still needs to pass and then still go to the voters, but I'm curious as far as, you know, of course we have multiple water projects in the queue for us locally. What kind of timeline are you seeing those standards and guidances hitting us locally, if you had to speculate?
So I think if I understand your question correctly, I don't think it's going to apply necessarily to local conveyance. If that's any comfort, I guess, in that regard, the Office of Water Supply Conveyance Coordination that's discussed in the legislation was kind of a compromise worked out in the Senate as it relates to what was originally going to be a statewide authority for a grid of massive pipelines to move water across the state. And so instead of that, when that idea didn't have the political support in the Senate, the bill then contemplates now this Office of Water Supply Conveyance Coordination, which is really still about a statewide grid of conveyance pipelines. And so we're talking, 14-foot, 15-foot pipelines where they're operated, if you're familiar with like common carrier standards. And so that way multiple producers in this case or contributors of water to that system could utilize it as a conveyance system. And because it was not going to be one statewide authority bonding, building, and operating those pipelines, this office is meant to try to standardize regional entities that might be building them and interconnecting them. And interconnecting them from an infrastructure standpoint, probably the connection or dealing with the different types of water quality within those pipes and things like that.
Okay, so this is basically that larger, thank you for that clarification. Yeah. That's all my questions.
Sorry, if I could add, you asked a timeline question that I didn't answer.
But you answered the gist of it.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan.
The point being September is when they would probably start creating the rules.
September, okay, thank you, sir.
And Mayor, can I just chime in here for a minute? So Ryan, because we'll have several presentations now back-to-back every week till the end of the session. Mm-hmm. Ryan, confirm I think you sent this out via email to the council, what you just presented today on Sunday. And I bring it up here just because that's what will be the process. Ryan doesn't get the final information until probably like Sunday morning, and there's still some Monday, but he makes a point the cutoff is Sunday. And then he'll send us that PowerPoint that he presents today, Sunday afternoon via email. So just so we know for the next time.
Yes.
What's in the presentation packet as of Friday? but it gives them a few more days to finalize it.
So
I understand. I know that there's a number of items we get here Tuesday morning and we're handed updated packets regularly. And so I would have loved to see if you have it even further, if you have it in an inbox Sunday or even Monday morning, that's
Like a
still
paper
before
copy
Tuesday.
Like a paper copy you're talking?
Whichever, just
Yeah,
as long
because
as we can get an updated.
he emailed it on Sunday. Ryan's going to email them every Sunday?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I must have missed that coming through my inbox, Ryan. I was looking at the one that was on the agenda.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up, so everybody, all the council knows that the presentation he'll make will be emailed Sunday. We can print it out for the council for Tuesday morning, if you'd like, or...
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, just for reference, Councilwoman, that was with the same one about the Hunter meeting, the Hunter bill on TWIA. So it was sent on the 30th. But I think it's a good reminder, though, and I appreciate Peter saying that, just because it is so fast moving. If you'll notice on the committee report that was sent on Friday, in some cases, postings don't happen until after 5 o'clock on Friday. So while we're trying to meet with TML and other cities, coordinate that, I'll do my best to get that information in front of you, not at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Councilman Hernandez.
Thanks, Mayor. Ryan, with regards to some of these bills, you have, I guess, you have them listed, but you don't really say whether our delegation supports it or doesn't. And so that might be a good information for us to understand where our delegation stands with regards to those individual bills that we're monitoring that affect us. That way we know who to reach out to or who to talk to specifically about those bills. I was just looking up Senate Bill 15 and on the lot sizes, and I saw that Senator Hinojosa voted for it. Well, that would be something we could discuss with him with regards to how it affects us here at the city. So if you can provide that information as to where our delegation stands, and if they don't have a stance on it or they haven't voted on it, just say they haven't voted on it. At least give us some idea of what we need, who do we need to contact, especially in our delegation.
Yeah. That's good, and we're happy to do that, Councilman.
Councilwoman Vaughn.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm interested in that SB 854 relating to the regulation of multifamily mixed-use development on religious land. So it was voted out, so it's moved forward. What are they talking about doing?
That's a good question. So I'm going to have to separate it in my mind from all the other development issues that are going on. So religious-owned land, it would not require them to obtain zoning to basically build multifamily or mixed-use developments on that land. The idea being that religious entities might provide housing just in general to add more supply to the overall need, or they might provide housing associated with what their religious mission is. And while I think generally we have commented to the committees that we support the concept of obviously housing affordability, we support our the religious entities in the city that are serving the public through their mission. Again, our primary concern on 854 specifically was the proximity in that APZ and making sure that that doesn't become a dense zone that ultimately encroaches on the mission. There are certain things in 854 which do allow for, and I'm happy to get you a copy, Councilwoman. They do allow for certain development standards, so it's not as far-reaching as some of the other proposals. But, and we're working with the House author of that legislation to try to just protect the military APZs in particular.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ryan, thank you so much. I don't know how you keep up with all of this, but it's extremely, oh, you've got a comment. It's extremely helpful to all of us, these briefings, and we appreciate your work. I think we have one last comment, Councilman Roy.
Ryan, thank you for your presentation. I've been trying to follow the whole school voucher thing, and I don't think you mentioned this, but I just read where one article said that the hearing was postponed or wouldn't go forward But another article from Ken said that basically that it looked like they were one step closer to passing the vouchers. Do you have any insight on that?
It's not candidly one that I track super closely just because it's school related. I will tell you that the hearing that was posted for today included, I believe, you may not quote me on this, but it's the Senate version. So if that tells you how much it's advanced, the Senate version of the bill already in the House for consideration. It was postponed because the chairman published what are called runs, which are impacts to specific school districts and House districts. They typically make those available to House district members so that they can understand how certain property tax bills, and in this case, the voucher bill, would impact their district. They weren't available until very late. So out of respect, he postponed it, but I think he postponed it one day. So they will consider it in the very near future.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ryan, thank you so much. Like I said, we really appreciate the briefing, all the explanations, and of course, we remind council if anybody has any other questions on anything specific that they need more detailed information on, to please reach out to you.
Yes, ma'am.
And we appreciate your emails. Okay, so with there being no further business, this meeting is now adjourned at 2:48.